Here is James Cameron.
You never really get an opportunity. You take an opportunity. If you're going to do something, you have to do it all the way, and you have to just put it before all other things.
I don't know about you, but I'm having a really great time.
Welcome back, everybody. James Cameron 101, Eddie Green here. And today we have quite literally one of the coolest episodes, I think, of the podcast to date. This is something that I think has been in the works for about a year now. I was going back through messages with the three gentlemen who are going to be in the studio here shortly. And yeah, it looks like it's been about a year. So it's taken it's taken some time, but here we are. We're finally doing it. This is the celebration of Terminator 2, but specifically the makeup department of Terminator 2. So we have three of the key players in that field, and so we're gonna bring them all in and just talk some Terminator 2. I'm very, very excited for this. I hope everybody is as well that's watching and listening to this. So we're going to bring them in alphabetical order. I feel like that's the only fair way to do this. So first of, this is somebody that I've done so many podcasts with, and he's a dear friend of the podcast. So let's welcome back Jeff Don.
Hello, Eddie and
Hello.
Steve, and folks. Looking forward to talking with you.
Yes.
And Ed, I haven't seen Ed in what, 20 years?
This is so exciting. I mean,
Yes.
Last night I did a test with Ed. He just wanted to make sure that this was all gonna play out perfectly for him, and he also said the same thing. It seems like it's been a while. So let us bring in, of course, next up on the stage. You just said his name, so we'll welcome first time to the podcast, Ed French.
Hey. Hi, Eddie.
Ed.
Hi, Jeff. We're still alive.
We are still alive. I guess that's the best thing to celebrate.
And we're live.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes. And thank you for being here, Ed. This is very, very cool.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we have to round this out last, but certainly not least, also brand new to the podcast, Steve Laporte. This is going to be similar to Jeff has done this before, but it's going to be a pretty loose discussion. It's going to be like, there's not going to be anything too crazy going on here. We're just really celebrating the film. And but what I do want to do starting off is I want to highlight all three of you. So we lost Steve. It's gonna make you big on the screen for a second. And I just want you to tell everybody listening, watching, how you came into Terminator 2. So we're going to start there. And then, Steve, I was just saying, I'm going to make everybody full screen for a second, one at a time, and just tell us how you came into Terminator 2. Like, how did you become part of the team? So we'll start with Jeff here. How did you stumble into T2?
I stumbled into T2 after stumbling into T1. I've now been doing this for 45 years, department heading makeup departments. And it was early on in my career. It was 1983. And I got a call to go meet with this producer named Gail Ann Hurd and some unknown director named James Cameron. And I went up to Gail Ann Hurd's home up on Mulholland Drive, just out of the San Fernando Valley in Southern California, and met with the two of them. They said, "This is perfect. You have department head experience. You're non-union. You'll do it for $800 a week or whatever they were paying at the time." I mean, Terminator was a $2.4 million low budget film, which is, you can do a pretty good film for, 6.4 million. You can do a pretty good film nowadays for 6.4. So it was a decent non-union film. And I met them. They said, "Great, you need to be approved by Stan Winston, who had already been hired to do the design work and create the Terminator prosthetics and such." And of course, I met Stan and ended up department heading it and being the lead applicator for all the prosthetics.
All right, beautiful. We'll skip on over to Ed. How did you stumble into T2?
Jeff Don called me in to work day check a day and it turned into 5 months of work. I was, like I say, the third wheel. I think whenever Jeff or Steve couldn't be in two places at once, I was in that place. I think that's the way it worked, wasn't it, Jeff?
Yep. Oh, and you and I had history. You know, you'd help me out with so many prosthetics, so many Arnold double prosthetics, so many different bags over the years that it was a no-brainer for me. So thank you for saying yes.
Yeah. Well, it was very fortunate. I mean, I was aware that it was a big movie, but when it was over, I realized this is one of the greatest sequels in the history of motion pictures that I had the privilege to work on with you.
Incredible. And Steve, how did you get into Terminator 2?
Well, Jeff and I had worked together. You know, we got in the union together. His uncle Wes introduced us both. I was working for Tom Berman in his studio in Star Trek 3. You know, so I've been in the lab field for a long time, and Jeff and I had met each other. We were both trying to get in the union, and he, of course, had done these non-union projects as well as I had. And, you know, to jump forward at this point, T2, we were both in the union, both working. I was doing several projects. I'd already kind of come out of the glory that Beetlejuice had given me. You know, I got $5 more an hour, you know, for you know, getting an Oscar for it. But I had opened up a studio, and I had a studio running for a couple of years. And Jeff kind of called me at a time when things were starting to wind down. You know, most of the projects were finished. They were on set. I had people doing them, doing application, or I was doing stuff. It was kind of winding down, and we were adding on to my house. So I wasn't taking any more jobs in the studio. And Jeff called. I was just getting ready to run to Chicago to check on a thing with John Candy. And he said, "Hey, I've got Terminator 2, and it's going to be a big, long run." And at the same time, John had just called me to do his makeup for a movie. And I said, "John, I think I'm going to do Terminator 2. And because I knew it was going to be mostly in town. And, you know, you make all these choices. You know, I'm working on my house. I have a studio, you know, and, you know, I had to find something to keep me around. So he called me for that. And of course, I'd worked on Running Man with Jeff before. So I knew Arnold. You know, it's always good when you have the right players, that your actor feels comfortable, that, you know, if someone drops a brush, the other guy can pick up another one and keep going. And that way we have each other back and make it better for the actor to get through it. But as I entered into that whole, you know, leave my shop behind and then do Terminator, you know, we literally, it was this time of year, it was around October leading into Halloween that we actually started on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the first stuff was right there in the, I don't know what we'd call it, the LA River stuff. And so that's kind of how I got brought into it. But because I knew Stan before, I knew a lot of these guys in the labs. And so Jeff kind of let me be like the prep guy in the trailer to, you know, put the pieces together ahead of the time, because he had to be on set a lot. So I became his other hand. And to get Arnold out of the chair quick, we double teamed him all the time. And, you know, so it was kind of just at the right time. There were other projects I could have taken, and Jeff called just at the right time. And boy, am I glad he did. It was really fun.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So really, Jeff, you were the only one that had, I mean, you could look at the credits on T1, but neither Ed nor Steve were a part of that. And it was just sort of as you went throughout your career working with Arnold, you were bringing in Ed and Steve from time to time, right?
Yes, because when you did Terminator 1, I didn't know either the one. I knew Steve because, like Steve said, we took our test together in, what was that, 1985 or so?
84.
84. We took,
85, because I started at NBC. I got in the television union first.
Right.
And then halfway through, I got my days on Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, after 1 year at NBC, I jumped over, you know, to Color Purple. I kept getting my days all in 1 year. And then you were doing the same thing. You jumped on a Star Trek movie. You know, Ed sublet my studio to do a Star Trek movie. So, I mean, we were all kind of in the same circle.
Yeah. Yep. We were non-union, and then we all kind of got in the union I think, around the same time. So we just helped each other.
Yeah.
I got in '89. I was still in New York when you did Terminator.
Okay. Terminator 1. Right.
Then I had a wife, or I should say my wife had a baby. And then I said, I got to get serious about this makeup thing. So that's when we moved to LA in '88.
Yeah.
And I was lucky, like a year later, I'm in 706 and all these wonderful opportunities came.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Ed, what is behind you, by the way? I just want to highlight this real quick. I want to highlight backgrounds. I like seeing what's in the back here really quickly.
What is behind me? It's sneaking up on me. That's actually one of the characters from Star Trek VI. And
Okay.
I was nominated for an Academy Award the same year Jeff was nominated for T2. And I actually helped him win his Academy Award.
Yes, you did.
And I lost mine. And I'll tell you one great story my wife always loves to tell me, Jeff, is she had to go to the loo during the ceremony. And she left her seat, and you were on the end there with Stan Winston. And I was in a few seats, and she was out in the hall, and they wouldn't let her back in. And they're about to announce the award. And you got up and let her come back in to the theater.
I remember that. The people love to hear how the Academy Awards is run. And one thing that they're very strict with is that you don't go to the bathroom or get out of your seat until it's a break.
And
when it's a break,
the hard way.
Yeah, when it's a break, you can get up and you run out these doors that are closed, and there will be a seat filler, a nice-looking, well-dressed man or woman, whoever walks out. Like in your case, a woman came in nicely dressed, not your wife, and she came over and she sits in the chair next to you. Because typically you don't have enough time to go to the bathroom and get back in time and into your seat. You have to sit out there in the lobby for the 10 minutes or so until the next break. And so suddenly they close all the doors, and you have a seat filler sitting next to you. The awards are coming up. I know she's freaking out there, and I'm 20 feet away from the door. So I just walk over there. Probably people were freaking out, thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's getting out of his seat." And I opened the door, and she was there. And I remember looking down at her, and she was arguing with somebody. I'm sorry, what is your wife's name?
Yeah, Diane. Yeah,
Diane, come on up here. It's kind of this, and she broke free and ran up and ran through the door as everybody's going, "Damn." And she came in and sat down.
Yeah, as if the moment wasn't tense. It wasn't tense enough. Let's add that drama, Anyway.
Yeah, but that would have been terrible for her to have missed that, and we didn't know ahead of time.
I know, and she's never forgotten that, Jeff.
It felt good to break the Academy rules like that.
If she were here, she'd thank you. And I just want to mention, I never got a chance publicly to mention the fact that I'm glad you won the award. I think it was kind of a miracle that Star Trek VI was even nominated. It's a TV show, and we were in there, and we knew goddamn well that T2 was a classic. It was a juggernaut, right?
I really thought that Hook was going to win because they were the other contender, and it was a big film and a great makeup. And you're so busy on a film like T2 that you can't see the forest through the trees, and suddenly it's done and you're like, wow, that turned out cool. People seem to like it. And I remember when they announced each one of the movies, the audience would clap, Star Trek and Hook. And then they announced Terminator as one of the nominees. And the audience really went crazy. They were, woo, Jew. And I thought, uh-oh, this is the crowd in here that voted for it. These are Academy members sitting in here. I better get ready to stand up.
No, it's just... Go on. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it's like you couldn't compete that year. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's like I said, beside the point. I'm very pleased that I had some part of it.
Well, you're welcome, and thank the both of you. I mean, I was the one without an Academy Award at the time, hired an Academy Award winner, Steve, who was extremely instrumental in it, and it came down to 2 awards, and it was going to be. Stan and myself. That was Stan's call. Stan had, he was the 800-pound gorilla in the room. He had won other awards. He was well established. He was respected. He had the resume. He had the age. all of that. And he said, no, I just want the two of us because I have all my guys at the shop. We have Peter, the hairstylist. We have Steve, who's the right-hand guy who was certainly responsible for 50% of what you see on Arnold's face. And that's what won the award. So, you know, he was thanked. Steve was thanked, I believe, by
By
Stan. Yeah, but
Yeah.
sorry, Ed, you were not, but you weren't on the whole show. So
Oh.
I guess that was the cut. But you know, it always bothered me that both Peter and Steve weren't, you know, nominated at that moment with an Academy Award now.
Yeah, like that's the thing that I was gonna say is it's such a strange thing how it is operated because there is a bigger team involved, and to just give
Yeah.
2 awards seems a
Right.
little strange to me. Maybe I'm the outsider here, but it seemed a little strange. Like, why can't there be 6 Academy Awards for everybody?
Well,
that was
it's in
part of
it. Steve is a better person to speak to about this, having to do with, you know, how many people are nominated and why that is. Because Steve was the chair of our Academy Award branch for how long, Steve? I mean, you were
Yeah.
the guy.
I was on the board for 14 years and I was chair for a year.
Yeah.
And it's changed over the years. It started off with 2 awards and it went to, they'd give 3 out, and then it became 2, 3 if necessary. It became a big deal. And at one point, even later on, they whittled it down to only 2. And it got down between, you know, the hair person in charge of design and the makeup. And even later on, you know, Rick Baker and Gail, you know, Rick and Gail got it for Grinch, and Kazoo, who had sculpted the Grinch appliance and applied the Grinch appliance, was kind of left out. And I think now they've expanded it to 3 people again. You know, I think, you know, if they give sound design and special effects, you know, 4 awards, they should expand makeup, because now makeup, you've got multiple hands in it. And it's always been a difficult thing choosing the most responsible person on a film who did the work. And sometimes the department head gets left out if a prosthetic is what basically drives that film.
Right.
It's kind of, it's unfortunate. And I think that the maximum amount of opportunity should be given for those who participate. So if they can do 3, it should always be 3. It's always
I
been
agree. Yeah, and 3 of them, because back when this thing started, you know, go giving awards out, it was to the makeup.
Yeah.
It was for makeup. And
then it got bigger for hairstylists.
it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And what happens, you ended up with a handful of Academy members in the makeup branch that were makeup artists. And they're, of course, going to vote makeup. Well, then slowly some hairstylists started getting into the branch, and then started voting for, hey, there's a hairdresser on that really was responsible for this. So now I believe it's almost 50-50. The what 100 or 200, whatever it is in the makeup and hair branch that votes. It's very makeup and hair now, and so that automatically gives you 2 awards. And as you know, Steve, weeks beforehand, we go in there when I was involved with all the nominations for the branch. You go in and you discuss who's going to be nominated for this. Let's look at the letters that the studio sent. Let's look at the department head sent. And we vote on it. Okay, we've got 2 awards. Is it going to be the department head and the lead applicator? Is it going to be the department head and the hairstylist, or the applicator and the hairstylist? It's very tricky to try to figure that out, but we are very diligent in trying to give the 2 or 3 awards to the most responsible people. And there's times that people will say, all right, are we in agreement that this is for a hair award? This really stood out for hair, and we're going to push the hair department on this. And we vote on that. And then other times, no, this was really about makeup. It wasn't makeup and hair. This was makeup this time. So you go through these discussions trying to figure out what's the fairest choice to give the awards to the right people.
Yeah, it's you know, it's very challenging, and it's gotten more difficult. I'm glad I'm not on the board anymore. I don't have to make decisions. You know, I served my time. I was a pretty heavy participant for 15 years, and you know, it's just, you know, with working out of town and on other shows. It took me kind of out of the saddle for a while. Then eventually I retired, and COVID came along and everything changed everything. So I decided to leave it up to the next generation to make those hard decisions and take it off my shoulders at least.
Steve, are you still a member?
I'm a member, but I retired. I'm a member emeritus. I can go to meetings, I can participate, but I can't vote.
Interesting. I actually got out about 5 years ago. I'd been in for 4 years ago. I've been in for 29 years. And it was getting to a point, because I was still working quite a bit, that I couldn't watch 80, 100 films
Right.
a year. Plus, I liked documentaries, so I was specializing in that. And finally, I called them and said, hey, I'd like to get out. And they're kind of shocked at that, because it's very difficult to become an Academy member. It's very prestigious. And they said, well, sir, is it the cost? Because I think it's like $250 a year. I said, no, because they have funds that they can subsidize. Is it higher than that now? And I said, to be honest with you, I just, I love getting the movies, because every Academy member loved for years getting VHS tapes. And then we loved getting DVDs. And now we're getting, 150, 200 downloads that you can watch for months ahead of time over your, through your computer.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, that won't stop. I went, what are you talking about? They said, we are not allowed to give the studios the names of people who retire or get out.
Right. Good.
So, but then recently, because I am retired, I'm still working on projects that I like to do, but I have more time. I thought I might join again. So I called and they said, oh yeah, no problem. Just let us know. You were a member in good standing, and you don't have to catch up with your dues. You'll just pick right up where you left off and start paying $250, $350, whatever it is a year. But it is fun, because you get to vote and you can go to the Academy Awards, and that's
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, so when I knew I was going to move away, I thought, I'm just going to I became a member emeritus. I'm just kind of like an old timer, still a member. I just don't have voting rights. I don't pay any dues. I'm still part of the Academy. I get their emails. I can still use my card and go to the museum for free with a guest. I can attend screenings. And of course, like on the channel that they have, the streaming channel, being in Oregon, where you are, I can sit and we can watch all the films and never leave our home and watch them on our big TV set and, enjoy things as they are. And if we decide we want to go to a film locally, we'll go to the film. But I just wanted to be a participant and make it more fair for everyone else when it comes to making those hard choices. And, made sure that, if they'd even talk about a film and say, wait a minute, you guys, you're not discussing this film. Look at what it is. And, sometimes what you bring to the table brings interest and can change the whole dynamic of what films are looked at and what films are ignored. But I was a pretty heavy participant for years, and once I started doing jobs out of town a lot, I kind of slacked off, and it's worked out well now. If I wanted to join and have voting rights, I could. It's just a matter of writing a letter.
Right.
But that's that. Let's talk about T2.
Well, it is.
I just want to mention one thing. I'll just mention one thing. I believe in awards. I think it's important to have recognition, and makeup artists and hairstylists don't always, people that watch the movies don't even realize what they're watching, how much goes into even a so-called normal, as opposed to prosthetic or monster or weird makeup or something. We can appreciate it, but think of the other crafts, like acting. Like I can't think of this actress's name. If anyone watching this, maybe they can go and look it up in IMDb. But if you see the movie Network, there's a scene in it with an actress who plays William Holden's wife, who has a freak out when she discovers he's having this affair. She has one scene in the movie, maybe 8 minutes, and she won the best Oscar for actress. That's it. And think of all the other people that did full length movies, and they didn't get an award for that. But she nailed that one scene. Interesting.
Well, that kind of thing can happen, especially with Emmys. I don't know that much about the inner workings of the Emmys. Maybe you guys could help out, but I believe you literally could work as a day checker one day on Star Trek And if that episode was nominated and if it won, you walk away with an Emmy for best makeup for the year.
Yeah.
You and 10 other people, you know. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that didn't seem fair, but it happens. The reason I brought up the whole Academy thing in detail is, Steve, you probably found this to be true. People love to hear the details of the behind the curtains workings of the Academy.
Yeah.
What is it like to go? What is it? Who do you see? What, you know, other than the glitz of what people see with the outfits and the red carpet and all that? How does it work? How does the security work? You know, when I had to pee one time when I was when we were there, and I'm the only one in the bathroom. All of a sudden, next to me walks Brian Adams, the singer, and he's in the urinal next to me, and I'm thinking, where else could this happen? You know, and then later on, he sung live on stage. It's a different world, and people love to hear those things.
Yeah, I remember Robert Downey was one of the presenters, you know, for us, and he's the one who handed me my statuette, and we took pictures and stuff. But I remember later on going out to the restroom, and here's Robert coming out of the bathroom, and then I run into Tom Cruise in the hallway, and he's standing there, and he goes, "What'd you get the award for?" And I said, "Makeup." And he goes, "Oh, great," you know. So you run into people for that little mini moment, and that's the only part of your life to be into. And I've seen Robert Downey since then. Haven't seen Tom Cruise since then, from across the room, but you know, it is kind of a unique place. And even back then, you know, we got it in 88, 89 for Beetlejuice. It wasn't as grand, as developed as it is now. We didn't even get a gift bag. You know?
Gift bag? I didn't get a gift bag.
Yeah, you were before gift
recall
bags.
that.
Now people walk out with $500 worth of crap in a bag that, you know, and free massages and vacations and trips, and you know, it's a whole thing now that, you know, we don't have exposure to. However, I'm glad that the makeup awards have come up in their quality, and that they're obviously recognizing a larger field of people who may be part of a project where the Academy is kind of small, who they can recommend. And they have hair categories and makeup categories and special makeup effects categories. So they've really done the right thing in recognizing, you know, folks from each specific area, and which I really think is great. Even the Emmys have kind of separated a little bit. I mean, like you said, Jeff, I got an Emmy nomination for A Day Check. I did a couple of days on a show for X-Files, and we won as a group. I didn't even go. You know, I got a phone call from someone said, "Hey, Steve, we won." I go, "Won what?" Yeah. And I go, well, you know, I just, you know, and I figured, you know, I was nominated a lot for Emmys, and I figured, oh well, it's kind of payback for the ones that I lost. Yeah.
Hey, how about that? How about that Academy Award lunch? How about that? You know, I remember that one I went to with you, Jeff, and you were there, and it's just amazing to be near all of those movie stars that were there. I made a beeline to Anthony Hopkins. He was up for
cool.
Silence of the Lambs. Anyway, that was as memorable as the ceremony.
Yeah, I was in Chicago on location, and I flew in just in time for the award ceremony, so I missed the lunch. I got a T-shirt with my name on it. That's about it.
Yeah.
So.
The lunch is nice because it is more casual. You know, people are talking to each other, because once you get into the awards, there's a lot of tension there. You know, even when you're not nominated, because I've gone. My son's birthday is around the time of the Academy Awards each year, and he's a huge film nut. So that would be my gift to him many times. We'd go to the Academy Awards, and it's just there's a lot of tension there, and it's fun. What's also cool is afterwards you go to this. When we did it, they had a giant tent set up, and you have this little party right afterwards at the venue. This was the Music Center downtown before they went into the Kodak Theater. And you have, you know, all these round tables afterwards, and you see the Academy Awards on all the tables because all the winners are there along with the people that were just nominated. And then everybody gets in their cars or limos or whatever and goes into town. And you go to different restaurants. Well, you know, if you walk up to Spago's, a very fancy restaurant in LA, in Hollywood, there's a line and there's 100 people there. You know, this is the Academy Award night. Well, when Stan Winston and his wife and myself and my wife, Stan had 2 Academy Awards in his hand and I had 1 in my hand. They want you to do that. They want you to come into the restaurant and place your Academy Award on the table. Well, needless to say, it's like, oh, excuse me, folks, you come up right here. Come here, right through the door. There's a table right there in the front for you, you know? And everybody else is going, what about us? We've been waiting here for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get to experience that. I went to the Governor's Ball, ate, got out, and I flew out the next day to Chicago again. So it was
Oh, man.
rush.
Well, yeah. I had to fly out the next day to Italy. I was doing Cliffhanger.
Yeah. And I was
And-
going up to Budapest. So I flew to Chicago to close the trailer and get on a
Oh,
Budapest the
what a
next-
horrible life we've had, you know?
Yeah, I was about to say, oh, I feel
Yeah.
so sorry for you. The price
I
of
know.
success.
Damn it.
Well, okay. So keeping in line with how I highlighted Ed's background, I want to highlight Steve's background here real quick, and then because clearly over your right shoulder, it looks like T2, unless I'm mistaken.
No, that's something that Jeff gave to me. We did this. This was just a really cool thing of the makeup. It's always been in my office. You know, Jeff had that made up for me. So it's always kind of there as a nice reminder. I just set up my office here, so it's slowly getting put together.
It's beautiful. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to, clearly for anyone watching, myself included, being here hosting this, I'm very curious if that is, let's use that as an example, that those 2 shots of Arnold's face, because clearly that's, I think safe to say that's probably what won best makeup, right? That and all the stuff with the does the puppets of the T1000 count when it's exploding, or is that something else?
No.
No, they look at that. There's also a kind of a really nice age makeup on Linda Hamilton that we did. There were photo double makeups that you don't even realize are there. And sometimes that's the trick, you know, you don't show people, it's not obvious, but there's stuff there. You know, we had photo doubles of Arnold. It's when Jeff started using the partial face pieces. Peter Kent doubled Arnold. Billy Lucas doubled Arnold. Joel, the stunt coordinator, doubled Arnold. He had multiple doubles, and make a double look as much like the actor in question is a little magic trick you have up your sleeve. Ed did those double makeups many times on Robert Pattinson. You know, little earpieces and cheekbones, and just so you get a nice profile in a dark light. So those I call makeup gags are all part of it, and sometimes they go unnoticed. And the most obvious one is the final stages of Arnold in that exposed endoskeleton makeup.
I just want to say, Jeff taught me how you do a double makeup, what you do when you create a prosthetic for double makeup. It's the profile. That's what you said, Jeff. Capture the profile.
Yeah, it's tough because a person's face, if they're too wide and you're trying to double somebody that's slimmer, it's very difficult because we can only add makeup. We can give the illusion of hollow space, but it starts to look a little funky. Usually with a profile, you can add more to this area to make it look more like Arnold, because Arnold has a very unique nose and chin and jaw and cheekbones, and those are things that you can add on to most faces. And Ed has probably done more of the double prosthetics from life cast to sculpting to handing me a bag full of foam latex prosthetics for Arnold doubles than anybody. And we've done hundreds of those to probably a dozen different stunt people and photo doubles over the years. But Ed did more of them than anybody.
I'll be right back. I got to find something to show you. Carry on.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Quick, we can talk about Ed now that he's gone.
Well, you know, I was just out in the garage looking. I have a garage full of stuff because I closed my shop down at home, and I had a box set up, and it was a full set of T2 prosthetics that were unused and a couple of scrap ones. I had a photo piece that Stan's guys made. I had the bullet hits. All that stuff is in a little box somewhere. I couldn't find it. I was right down to the wire looking for it. But I've actually shown it before because I have a little YouTube channel that talks about things, and I've done stuff for Matt Winston for their school. I've kind of recreated a version of the Terminator makeup. That became kind of a classic fun makeup to do for demonstrations because everyone identifies with it.
Right.
It's a fairly, now that we've broken ground on, it's a fairly not difficult makeup to recreate.
Mhm.
I use my face as a stock face, and I can put it on just about anybody. And if I am in a pinch, I went to Germany several years ago and did a demonstration in Dusseldorf. And I put together a whole slideshow about the history of makeup, and I was going to do a Terminator makeup. And I said, oh God, the wig is the most difficult part. And I said, put it on a bald dude. So I found a bald guy and did the makeup on a bald guy, and it was fast. And because my time was cut short, I actually did my whole presentation and did the makeup in 45 minutes.
Wow.
It was speed makeup, and
Yeah.
it turned out really cool. And it was really nice to have duplicated that makeup. And I've done it multiple times, and of course recreated it for Stan Winston schools for as well. But part of that, oh, Ed's got some goodies here. Show us, Ed.
I got something interesting here. I should have thought of this earlier. Oh my God, it's sealed up. Jesus. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now I'm gonna have to cut it open. This is
Oh,
stupid.
these artist types.
Well, and then Jeff, later on we did Terminator 3, which was even a more elaborate version of the makeup on the opposite side of
Very
the
much so. Yeah.
So we've bounced back and forth on both sides of Arnold's face and body and stunt doubles. And, I wish I had more pictures from T2. That was the day of non-digital cameras,
Mhm.
all the time. And there's a few pictures of us together, doing Arnold's makeup and with Peter. And, I remember on T3, I was snapping pictures away. You said, God, I'm surprised Arnold's letting you take so many pictures. So, boy, T3 is well documented, but
Yeah.
T2 was
Yeah.
look at that. There's the mug.
So this is a
Ah,
this is a silicone copy. It says here, because I can't remember this stuff. This was from the 1990s movies. Batman Forever, Mr. Freeze.
mhm.
That's what that is. I've saved that. And you can't see it, but we invented a little system with there's little perforations like keys in it, so that you can figure out how to apply the cheek pieces and stuff so that they fit properly. So
Mhm.
there's that. And then I can't believe these are still here. These are actually
Hermetically sealed.
foam rubber. There, foam rubber. This was done for Eraser. You can't really see it too well. It's got the
Right.
flashing.
Got all the
on it.
flashing.
Yeah.
Boy, they're in good shape still.
Yeah, you keep them in a plastic bag in a
Yeah.
cool room, and they're still there. I
Yeah.
don't know
For
what
those
to do with them.
For those that don't know, foam latex, the same stuff that's been used since The Wizard of Oz, is still being used. It's very durable. It has no translucency to it, so you have to paint that in. Not unlike urethanes and silicones and gelatins, but it's quite durable when it's on the face, but it does not like to live long in our world. It rots very quickly.
Hey, here's something else that I saved, and this is
Color charts.
this work of Steve Laporte. This was this was the whole plan. It's upside down. It's all like bleeding out now, but this was the whole
That's it.
the whole thing. Every color
God.
you would use.
I look at
paint.
that now and think, could I possibly do that makeup still? Of course, we all could. It just would take us a moment.
Yeah, there was a whole way to do it, and it worked
Yes.
great.
Yeah,
You had a palette with all these things.
Or
I think I still have my palette somewhere. If not, it went by the wayside and moved. But for years, I carried that palette around just as reference. And
Yeah, me too.
most people think that when you do a prosthetic, you slap a color of flesh on it, maybe some red, and walk away. And it's not so. And because we had 4 eyes looking at that when Jeff and I would do the makeup, and you stepped a couple of times and I was sick, I think, or had to be away, we had it down to, God, you saw how many colors were there. And it was all very carefully
Yep.
layered in color so that the eye could see it more realistically. You know, we did a lot of night shoots, so we geared it for low light, so you had to punch it up in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's that and you have to add that what I call the film factor. You know, that you got to give a little bit of extra sometimes for.
Mm-hmm. Theatrics.
If there's blood, you want to leave off as much as you can so you can see the details of the sculpture, because you can ruin a makeup with too much blood.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's a Terminator, he doesn't bleed much. He's got very few capillaries to do the job. It's all kind of a facade. So I think that's what helped show the makeup off better, which I liked. And we called that the dance, Jeff. Remember that?
Yep. Oh, I remember that. You would have, let's say, brown with your, orange stipple sponge, and I would be going red, and we'd be working on our side, and then go, "You ready to do-si-do?" And then we would flip. So now you're doing brown on my side, and I'm doing red on your side, and it kept it very well balanced and nice.
Yeah.
And
if one of us was heavier handed with one color, it didn't change. It was
right. It was overall, yeah. Yeah, and then of course you deal with, especially with foam latex, you have to add a shine to it to give it more of a realistic skin. But a tad too much shine and it looks like a shiny piece of plastic.
Sure.
Well, luckily with Terminators, just like on Terminator 1, everybody used to joke about the tube of KY I had in my back pocket all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I would take the KY and I'd put it on Earl's face and add that shine to give it kind of a plastic look. So
Yeah.
we carried a little of that over into T2 and T3.
Yeah. KY is always the one that wakes the makeup up, especially when you're doing foam latex and you powder.
Right.
And you get all those, we were using William Tuttle makeup, which is kind of a very dry makeup. And when you powder it, it does go matte. And a light layer of KY just brightens it up. We used to use that old caps and I've looked at a makeup and go, what's wrong with this makeup? But oh shoot, I forgot to put the KY on it. And all the even when Arnold was, normal Arnold, he had that KY plastic look. And all day, we used to have to go up and remove some of the rolled up stuff that would be on. We had to maintain him the whole time, and even on our photo doubles. And KY became, people don't realize now when we're all doing airbrush makeups and stuff, KY can really be a smart little addition to a makeup. And I still like old school. I still like to add, rubber mask grease on top of the makeup. Change it if I want. I can lift it off. So I still like to do makeups old school if I ever do makeups again.
Well,
I think foam rubber lends itself to fantasy and horror
and
so forth.
Yeah.
And Rick chose to do rubber in all the Nutty Professor films because of color, and it's not as critical to the eye. I like foam latex for fantasy characters and for dark opaque colors, and silicone is nice and good, and it's great for very subtle pieces, but foam still has its place. And I'm glad to be of a generation of artists who learned my craft with foam. And also, as we started moving forward, we started bringing back old materials like gelatin. And T3, Jeff, remember they were a lot of gelatin pieces.
A lot of gelatin. I would remember Arnold would have some gelatin pieces on his face, not big ones, but some of the smaller wounds, because it goes down so fast and it's easy. And he'd come in after lunch, and suddenly there'd be some of them falling off because gelatin is very fragile to heat and moisture. And Arnold, what are you doing? Oh, I was on my life cycle for 30 minutes.
Went like
like, oh shit. Okay, well, they're gonna and remember with T3, it's funny, this is about T2, but it all kind of blends together. T1, T2, T3. On T3, Arnold was making a ridiculous amount of money. Okay, it was publicized. He was making $30 million on it. And I had done all of these Terminator films now, and as Steve had, and Steve was with me on that. And I needed to come up with a list of how long these would all take. Now, Arnold had in his deal a 12-hour, what they call doorstep to doorstep, meaning from the time he leaves his home in Pacific Palisades, that's when the clock starts. And he has to be home no more than 12 hours later. So that only gives you about 10 hours on set. So I came up with these little cards that were laminated of the 7 stages Arnold would go through during
Yeah.
Terminator 3. And in the seventh stage, which he was in for a couple of weeks, it was something like 4.5 hours of makeup in the morning, a half hour of touch up, and then like an hour and a half of removal at the end of the day. Now, think about this. I mean, they give it what 4 or 5 hours of film time. And then Arnold has to get in a wardrobe and all of that. So they had about 4 hours a day to film with Arnold. And I knew they're going to, this was a $200 million film. I knew they were going to freak out with this, but they didn't. They saw that it was done this way. And, you're going to lose your actor. And I talked to Arnold about this ahead of time, and he was in agreement. And he knows how efficient Steve and I are as a team. Get him in, get him out as quickly as possible. But Arnold had a lot of steps in his final stages.
Yeah.
And they looked at it and went, okay. Oh, man.
Well, what we worked out carefully too, and we learned this from T2. We always tried. That's why we double teamed him, is to make it move quickly. And
Right.
you make I don't know if we even used a vacuform on T2. I mean, for placement.
No. T3 we did.
T3 was so many versions of that makeup leading up to the final version. That we had multiple. Vacuform pieces with air. I remember cutting out with my
Yep.
drill so many vacuform pieces, and I was kind of your prep guy while you were on set. I would be
Yeah.
getting ready the next day, and we were whittle that 4 hours down. We cut probably 30, 40 minutes off by the time we finished doing it, just finding shortcuts and ways to speed things up. I remember we had we were doing digital replacement for a big section of his face where we had green screen makeup. And the first time we did it, we did a bald cap on him. And I go, bald cap's going to be our killer. And I went out and I got chroma key green fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home, and because I sew, I got my sewing machine out, and I made a cloth fabric, like a bald cap. And because it's fabric, we just combed his hair down and tacked it in and just blend. It didn't matter if it had a hard line because it was green going to green, and digital was going to take it over. And I made a couple of them and then sent them to the wardrobe department, and they just made like a dozen for us. We always had something to alleviate the need for putting on a bald cap.
Right. Yeah. That's and Eddie, I've got a ton of pictures of this stuff, really depicting this. These different stages and what Steve's talking about, as well as that vacuform. I have the hero vacuform of Arnold's face, and it has endless amounts of holes, different colored Sharpies, markings on it saying this is stage 2, this is stage 3. It's really quite interesting. I'll get some pictures of that and send them to you also.
Continuity in a makeup like that is real important because you've got bullet hits, and you've got a scrape, and you've got something
Right.
off just a little bit, and they shoot 2 different days, and that bullet hole goes from here to here. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
And we were real sticklers on.
You see, that's the best award. The best award is when you guys come up with something that hasn't been done before. It's a real turn on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the MacGyver fun part of this, because as you know, Ed, I mean, especially lab guys, you got to MacGyver the shit out of your career, because almost everything that comes in is like, well, this is similar to what I've done before, but this is different.
Yeah, need something different.
Yeah. And I think Robert Patrick on T2 had a real specific look, and his photo double for stuff had to have that same look. And I think he had a jawline, he had a cheek, he had ear. Robert's ears stuck out. And Ed, you probably did that makeup more than anybody, because you and I switched off on it a few times, and then you took it over because I was busy somewhere else or whatever.
I used to joke with him. I used to say, this kind of looks like Dick Clark, if anyone remembers Dick Clark. That was what we were going for. It never moved,
Yeah, do you remember? I mean, his stunt double, I remember, and I don't know if we came up with something more sophisticated later on, but we needed to plump his ears out, pop them out. So just as when I used to do Leonard Nimoy's makeup for the Star Trek films,
Foam piece.
he helped me get through the first couple of times, because of course Leonard Nimoy knew the makeup, and he was a wonderful gentleman. And he would take Too Faced Top Stick. You know, it's a two-faced adhesive that we use in the film business for attaching wigs and facial goods. And it's just a clear two-faced tape. And he would put a little piece behind his ear, and we would clean off the back of his skull and that, and we would just tack it flat. So, and Leonard's ears didn't stick out much, but they really needed to be like, you know, wind tunnel tested tight to his face, to his head. And then with Robert, we just took some white
Makeup.
makeup sponges and cut them into a little wedge and then just glued them in there, you know, put some packs or something so that it looked like skin in case he turned. It looked pretty goofy with these big white chunks of foam back there, but it worked for the doubles.
Yeah. Eddie, are you taking notes on this? Are you stealing all these secrets?
Well, fortunately, this is recorded, so I can just go back and,
yes.
and watch it back.
You know, there are no secrets, really. You not only do you have to have the technique and the experience and the imagination, but you have to have the balls.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
You
See,
got
but
Oh,
that's-
yeah.
That's what's really fascinating about what we just talked about here is when I think of the makeup of T2, I really specifically think of Arnold. I didn't even really consider Robert Patrick even being a part of that because when I think of Robert Patrick's character, I think he's mostly CGI, right? When pretty much any time we're doing any like cool thing,
Sure. Right.
It's just to hear your story of the ear thing. I would have never even thought that was something you guys thought of.
Yeah. There's so many little things, and that's what, you know, the gentleman were mentioning earlier. You look at a makeup. Steve coined this a long time ago, and I've always used it and remember it. When you're in the academy, there's so many wonderful makeups and nuancy things that take a lot of time that you never know about because they're, even for makeup artists, you can't see it, you know. But when you have what Steve calls makeup, it's like the audience and the voters can go, oh, that's clearly all makeup. It's well done, but we're focusing on all that makeup. You know, but so many movies are filled with hours and hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of prosthetics and tests and doubles and all these different things that do subtle changes that no one ever can see, but they take time and money.
Yeah. I remember, I'd like to backtrack a little bit. You know, we talked about Jim Cameron, you know, being his first films you worked on, Jeff, and this was his big break on, you know, that was the first $100 million film, I think.
Yes.
And I remember him doing something as an interview. There's this crew video that was out, and it's an interview with him on the Tonight Show, and they said something. This movie cost $50 million. I think it was Aliens or something. And he goes, "You think anyone will ever do $100 million movie?" He goes, "Nah." And then of course he does it next. And I remember when we had the first meeting at Jim's office over by Burbank Airport, we walked in and there's all this really cool stuff from this. And, you know, and I didn't know a lot about Jim. You'd worked with him, but to walk around his office and see all these three-dimensional models of, you know, the I don't know what it was, this sky, you know, the alien craft that would fly around on Terminator and zap people. What were the Skynet?
Yeah, the hunter killers.
Hunter
Killers.
Those models were there, and the big water tentacle was there from the Abyss. And we had this screening. I remember he showed elements of the Abyss mainly, say, we're going to take this technology and apply it. And what was really cool is as we would shoot stuff, maybe a week later, Jim would come in and say, "Hey guys, check this out. It's done in editing. This is what this looks like." And I remember the first time we did the scene where Robert is walking out of the fire down in the LA River. And, you know, he just, you know, we used a stunt double or whatever, walking through fire. And then by the time they composited it and did all the metal, and I remember standing around, you know, the monitor and Jim showing this stuff to us. And that's the first inkling that we had that this is more than just an action movie. It's more than just Terminator Part 2. And then, of course, the scene with the helicopter where he and he goes, "Get out." And he melts into the helicopter, into the seat. And when we saw that stuff, we just got, you can't help but get excited.
Yeah.
And, when you finally see the outcome of the movie, you know that this movie was a lot of firsts.
Mm-hmm.
And for Cameron, it took the experimental things that he did on The Abyss and put him into this other movie, Above Water. And it was so interesting to see our craft grow right there on the spot.
Yep.
The bar got raised on T2.
Sure did.
To apply to other films, what they did, they set some standards that were hard to duplicate. Of course, now you can do that with your laptop computer or your iPhone.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to have been there for firsts of when that happened.
But I see very few things that are imaginative that are done with AI. I'm not going to get into AI, but I mean, when you're working with James Cameron, as you well know, he understands and respects every craft on the stage, and there wasn't a day that wasn't exciting on that.
Well,
thing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We learned a lot. There's times where Jim, not that he's not approachable, you don't want to get in his in his ear when he's thinking about something.
No.
But there are times you sit and you just have a little discussion about why is that thing there? And he's, it creates wind. And, there's some really cool, good information you get. He's a smart guy, and it's good to pick up on what's in his mind. And that's one thing I always enjoyed about working with talented directors, is kind of watching them and seeing how the wheels turn and seeing how they come up with the next shot when they might have planned it one way, but you see that switch right there and they change their mind and bring it, which just bumps it up a notch.
Yep.
And that was a really good lesson I learned from Jim, in that it also raises your own standards, and as many of us have, we've all been chewed out by Jim Cameron one
Oh, yeah.
and we've been at the end of his adjectives and adverbs he throws out sometimes, but
very publicly and embarrassing in front of 100 crew members. Yes.
Oh yeah. So it's I've been there, you've been there. It's a good learning. It helps you thicken your skin. It also brings attention to things you should be paying attention to.
No kidding. Yeah.
And that I learned working with Cameron on this show, I've always applied moving forward, and it's made the difference.
Yep.
You learn to respect the actor's space and the director's space, and that's a good lesson that was learned. And so I got a lot from Terminator because of it. Just raised the bar for me personally. And like Jeff, if you get nominated for something and you're put up on a pedestal, you better do good work from there on. You can't slack off. So it does raise your bar and raise the quality you want to bring to your work. And Terminator was definitely one of those.
When you finish a James Cameron film, you're never more honed at your craft. You have to be to have survived it, because he'll come up to you and ask you any question anytime that you should know as the makeup department head, and you better be able to lay it out at that moment.
Hey,
A thing that you'll remember well, Steve, that I've told, I think, on Eddie's other podcast. T2, we're doing a lot of the Foundry stuff at the end as reshoots out in Santa Clarita, California.
Yeah.
Arnold's in his full-on makeup. It's all some of the close-up stuff that we didn't get in the Foundry, actually, a few weeks earlier. And I'm at lunch. It might have been with you. And a PA comes up and says, hey, Jim wants you to take that light off, that little LED light off his eye, because he's going to do a close-up from the side. And we had this little light that we just glued onto the plastic structure that was covering his eye. And it looked fine. This is on film. It wasn't digital back then. But if you get an extreme close-up from the side, you're going to see a light bulb glued onto a piece of plastic.
Right.
And I said, okay, just let him know that if I take it off, it's off for the day, because it was very complicated.
Yeah,
the wire and the battery pack and all of that. It was a complicated thing. I go to the PA. This was all a great lesson for me. Let him know that, it's off for the day. And do you know what he's planning on doing if we need to shoot it? He goes, the PA says, oh, I'm sure he'll rotoscope it, which is a technique that they can do in post. It's quite expensive, but it made sense to me. Well, the problem I had was I didn't get up and walk over to Jim, who was still on the set, and say, "Hey, Jim, this is what I'm being told." It was assumption, and Jim will tell you, assumption's the mother of all foul ups. Do not assume anything. So I bring Arnold back in, we take the whole light off, we go out to the set, we film it, and then Jim goes, "All right, Dawn," he used to call me Dawn all the time, my last name, "put the light back on for the next shot." And I went, Jim, this is in front of 100 people. I told the PA that it's off for the day. And he goes, "What?"
Ugh.
I said, "Yeah, it's off for the day. What am I supposed to do the rest of the day then without that light, Jeff?" I said, "I was told you were going to rotoscope it." And he goes, "Oh, so keep in mind, this is everybody stopped and watching now."
Yeah.
He says, "Oh, so now I need to do a $50,000 rotoscope shot in post because my makeup artist refuses to do his job." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is going horribly wrong." And Steve was there thinking, "Thank God I'm not Jeff Dawn." And
Uh,
and I go, "Okay, I need this is on set. I need a chair, I need a table, I need some lights, I need Steve, myself. I think we had another makeup artist or two there. I need 30 minutes. We'll do it right here." And, the whole crew is standing around as we're going crazy and we put it all together, but talk about a painful lesson.
Yeah, and but that is the moment where the crew realizes what we do,
Yeah.
just puff and powder.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We get a lot of respect, and I've been in a situation where you had to like do a full repair right there as everyone watching the
Oh,
clock is ticking.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all prosthetics guys, so that happens all the time.
I always call it the $10,000 a minute situation.
Shit.
It's just burning through money every time it's delayed.
Yeah.
Try to pass that on to the people who work with me. If
Right.
you're in a situation and you're wasting time, it's costing a lot of money. And I've always driven that home, and I've always lived by that. So if I can cut 10 minutes off of makeup, I will.
Yep.
And
I remember hearing a story from Sonny Berman. Sonny Berman, for our audience, he's been gone for quite a few years now. Tom Berman, the brilliant makeup effects guy's brother, and Sonny worked with me many times. He was an ex-Marine, tough mofo, and he told me a story in his earlier days. He was doing a Ben Franklin makeup, and he had the hair and the bald cap and all of that. And this was back in the days when we didn't have latex bald caps. They were a bald cap material, which was a little more fragile. And it had been on all day, sweating. It was starting to break down. It was starting to come apart. And especially the older bald cap material, bald caps, as Ed can attest, because Ed is truly the expert in bald caps in our industry, they start to disintegrate. And when they do, you're gone. You're screwed. And they said, no, we want to do a close-up of him. We need to get his close-ups now. It's the end of the day. We need to get his close-ups. Fix it. And Sonny walks over to the bald cap, grabs it, and just goes and tears it off his head.
well, that's where the balls come in.
That's where the balls come from. And everybody freaked out. But the next day, they all came to him, including the director, and thanked him. Because they just shot it the next day, and it looked great.
Yeah.
I always wanted to do that. I wouldn't do that in a James Cameron film.
No.
no,
There's no touch-ups for that makeup.
No.
Incredible. I love hearing this stuff, by the way. So don't think I'm not.
Yeah, we just go off on these tangents. Well, it's great for us because these are really good times in our career.
Right.
Whether we were just climbing the ladder, whether we were, finding our own selves and learning and having success and failure. That I once heard that if you want to increase your success rate, double your failure rate, because nothing teaches you better not to fail than failing. It hurts.
Yeah.
Success feels good, but
yeah, I remember when we were doing the age makeup on Linda.
Oh my God. Yes.
We were shooting at night. It was Arnold in the bar. When he comes in, he's just wearing his shorts and no shirt, and he was easy to maintain. And we're doing a makeup test on Linda for the old age makeup. And so it's a night in there, and I think Shane Mahan is in there putting her hands on. There's all three of us just tackling Linda, and she had fuzz on her face. And when we glued everything down, we used Prozade, which is a really strong glue. And when we went to, Jim looked at the makeup, oh, it looks really cool. Maybe do this or that. And the wig's going to look like this. So we were good. And we went back to take the makeup off. And as soon as we started pulling and tugging, Linda goes, ow, ouch, you mother.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, she was quite upset.
She led into us and is pulling. And then she didn't want chemicals on her. And we're trying to take stuff off with the lightest, remover we can. And it turned into be, we were about this tall by the time she left the trailer.
Yeah.
And you go, I got to go talk to Jim about this right now. And you ran in to talk to Jim, and I'm kind of cleaning up. And Shane and I are looking at each other. I go, oh, shoot, how do we fix this? So you can't use chemicals. She didn't want to use Telesis, which is a chemical. It's silicone, but she didn't want the chemical. So we had to figure it out. And I remember we started doing tests and everything. We ended up gluing the whole thing down around her eyes with Duo. And
That's right.
a very thin down version of somehow we managed to put it all on. And of course, she had a friend visiting the day she worked on that makeup. And he came into the trailer. We said, yeah, keep her talking. So the whole time we're off, she's talking to her friend as kind of a distraction.
Yes.
So unfortunately, she only worked in that makeup one time, but of course, it is a hot day in the Arboretum in the sun.
Yeah.
And so those are moments where you got one shot to get it right. After getting your ass chewed out the first time, you want to succeed, and we managed to pull it off. We were trying. I mean, I was trying.
I know. I remember that, and it's tough enough already because you're doing a complete full coverage, like 10-piece prosthetic.
Yeah.
Painting it from scratch, and we did the test that one day where we had trouble with it. And then a few days later, we actually shot it. Of course, it never ended up in the final cut. But, oh, man, and Stan did.
Which, by the way, how does that, because that's something that I would think, applying all this, time, energy, and whatnot, and then it doesn't even make the film. Is that something that you're just
welcome to our craft?
I was going to say, is that something that you just inherently are kind of aware of, that this just might not even make the cut?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Eventually, it ended up in the director's cut, which was good.
Yeah.
Right.
And you saw it. But, all I say to myself, you know what, as long as the check doesn't bounce.
Yeah, and it's that we all have had that experience of having many makeups that never show up or they aren't shown correctly. But you do it, and that a lot of stuff just doesn't make the edit. I feel sorry for you go to a screening or a premiere at the end of a feature, and you see all the other day players and other actors that are there that were in it. And there are times that they have cut that actor or actress's scene completely and not told them. So now they bring their wife or their husband or somebody with them to the screening, all excited about these 2 or 3 days maybe they worked on the film, and they're not even in it. It's like, ooh, that sucks to be an actor sometimes. So that kind of thing happens to everybody.
Yeah,
I'm going to mention one little embarrassing episode we had. Steve and I were in on this one. The ending there where the T-1000 is melting down and he's bobbing up and down in this pool, and all these actors that played him in different personifications of him were made up to go in this pool, right? You remember it, don't you, Steve? Yeah. How can you forget this? Yeah. We made them up very heavily with like very contrasty makeup. It was just beautiful, like very stylized. Then they go in the pool, and one little detail nobody mentioned that whatever the hell was in that pool was oil, like oily, like baby oil. Baby oil. They went down once and they came up and it was gone.
It was a vat of makeup remover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Robert had this plastic hairpiece on. I call it the Elvis hat, and it was plastic chrome-looking hair, and I had to glue it down. It was vacuum formed plastic, so I had it glued down, and he had rubber mask grease on his face, like 10 shades dark, like dark Egyptian or something.
Right.
So it would read in the bright lights, which were orange and yellow.
Yeah.
So you had to do a paint trick, and every time he would come in and bob up out of the water, I had to run in and clean off and glue it down. And Jim just came unglued and goes, "How come the makeup's staying on?" And by that time, I didn't care. I'd been under Jim's gun, and I just turned around really quick and snapped at him and says, "Well, he's swimming in a vat of fucking makeup remover. What do you
That's right.
expect?"
That's right. That's right.
And he goes, "What do you mean?" I says, it's fucking confectionery sugar, water, and mineral oil."
Yeah.
And he goes,
It's amazing.
"Oh."
It's amazing.
I go, "But Jim, I'll make sure it stays on the best I can." And
I'll
you know,
say that.
fine.
Yeah, Jim, luckily, he has very little patience, but he also understands what's possible and what isn't.
Yeah.
You know, and he takes it right to the limit and expects everybody else to do the same. But when it doesn't happen, I tell people, because Jim has yelled at me for stuff like that many times. But when you're guilty of something, you weren't, because that was all justified. But when you screw up in the film business, we're all able to cover it usually. You get very good at, hey, don't look at that. Look over here. You're able to come up with excuses or reasons or, nah, don't worry about that. Well, Jim, you can't. Jim will bust you, and it's embarrassing. And with Jim, there's only one way to handle it. Jim, I'm sorry. I realized how it was screwed up. I know how to fix it. It won't happen again. That's it. Because if you say, yeah, but I work hard for you and it's not fair, forget it. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Interesting, creative person. Tell me if this is a false memory. Wasn't there a scene in the cab of the truck with the T-1000 where they sent out for tinfoil to dress him up? That kind of stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Steve, do you remember that? We had,
We were on
it was the nitrogen truck that flips over.
Okay.
And Peter Kent, Arnold's stunt double and photo double, climbs up on the cab, all in his prosthetics and everything, with a working, a blank, fully automatic, and blasts through the window into the face of the T-1000. Well, we didn't have anything for that. So Jim just said, let's get some foil and kind of mush it around him and give him a couple of eye holes. And it's about as low tech as it gets, but it worked fine.
That's in the movie. And for a split second, that's in the movie.
Yep.
A guy covered with tinfoil.
Shiny.
Well, then,
was great.
Because,
great.
But then also when they're fighting, you also see Robert Patrick's double, right? He's basically all in tinfoil, or he's in some kind of a.
That was a complete suit with face and hair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But for some reason, we didn't have that right then. I think it was Jim just thought of it at the last minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We had to have, it had to go from skin to splattered mercury, kind of shiny stuff. And that was those were cold nights, boy. There's a lot of nights.
Oh yeah.
And boy, it's funny because every film that's a big action film always has certain things that you remember. And boy, the thing that really drove home on that was working in the steel mill the whole time.
Yeah.
And we all had to wear hard hats, and we shot at night, and you see the lights passing through the dirt you're breathing, and you see the sparkly stuff in the dirt, which was, years and years of steel work in the steel mill, and we'd wear masks sometimes. But, you realize that, boy, I'm glad we didn't work any longer than we did. We'd probably be on the list of people who got some kind of.
Yes.
It's a creepy, oppressive environment,
Yeah.
But cool and unique. Remember, they had closed the plant down. It was the Kaiser Steel factory, and they had sold off all the smelters and ovens and everything to China, but they hadn't gone in there and started tearing stuff apart yet. So we had it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be this hot environment. We had everybody so sweaty because they're dealing with molten metal. Well, that molten metal was, it was probably 37 degrees when we were filming there. And we're pretending that it's 130 degrees in there.
Right.
I'm sweating down Linda all the time.
Yes.
Cold, and we're using hot water. And I remember, this is a funny one, Jeff. Remember the time Eddie had to have some sweat or something, and Jim turns to you and he says, "You got any glycerin?" And you think, "Oh shoot, that's the lowest tech thing I may or may not have in my kit." And you turned to me and looked, and I didn't have any. And we grabbed some oil out of your kit, a little oil, and you go, "Give this to Jim. I'm going to run and get the glycerin."
Yeah.
And Jim puts it on on his face, and he goes, "Okay, there we go." He goes, "Wait a minute, that's not glycerin. What is this?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, I guess it was the wrong bottle, Jim."
Yeah, yeah.
Came back just in time. Here it is. Oh, here it is, Jim. But talk about lucky that we kind of foresaw that and were able to stall just long
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. It's survival on a James Cameron. I mean, we're making it sound, torturous. At the same time, it's a wonderful, exhilarating honor to work on a James Cameron film.
It
He's
made,
not mean to people. He just busts you if you screw up. That's why
yeah,
people don't quit James Cameron films. If they get yelled at and embarrassed, where normally you'd want to quit, you say, "Well, I did screw up and I got busted for it, so this is on me."
you suck it up. We started wearing like a little fanny pack with stuff on us, and by the time we were done, we had full utility.
Oh yeah.
We used to laugh at each other, all the stuff we'd carry, and that carried on. I wore utility
Yep.
belt way after that, and designed bags that kind of do the same thing. And so you learn something and carry it forward, and you pass it on to those. So
Yeah.
it really does help you there. And I got my ass chewed once for distracting Eddie from Jim once, and I remember never touch an actor while the director's talking to him.
No
period.
kidding.
And so I would walk. So I carried that lesson throughout my entire career. I would walk up if there was an important touch up needed to be done. I could stand there and they go, "Do you need anything?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I need to do this." Okay, as soon as I'm done. And that was a type of communication that I feel has always been good for me and gotten respect from directors and actors alike. And then when to do what's called the drive-by. You literally just kind of walk by as they're having their coffee, and you look and you see if there's anything to do that you need to do. And if not, don't go in when they say last looks. You
Yep.
can rightfully say done and good to go.
Hey,
And
Jeff,
it's-
I was always glad, Jeff, that you dealt with Jim Cameron. I remember you just reminded me that I came in near the beginning and I did a stunt double makeup on one of the guys, and we had to go out and show it to Jim Cameron. And I was nervous, but I sort of like got behind you. you got there, and but he looked at the thing with you, and all he said was, "It looks the way you think you remember him." That was it.
which is pretty brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
looks
it,
like
and
it-
we were done.
Yeah, but it's just like, and he knows that. There are times that what we do, we have to ramp it up a few percent to make it more of a character makeup, whether it be darkening down, actors for extremely overlit. It's just the whole idea of theater makeup. If you're
Yeah.
30 rows back, you want to be able to see that actor is now old.
I've
And
never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that. I got a great compliment. It has nothing to do with T2. Okay. I did a Super Bowl commercial in December with Matthew McConaughey, and they wouldn't even let me have Matthew McConaughey. They had his double come in, and I had to make him up in these different characters through football history. Cut to the chase. There was one age version. They wanted them done quickly. Mostly it was done with wigs, but there was one where I got carried away and I went, "I'm going to put a bald cap on this guy and a receding hair, and I'm going to do some stretch and stipple and all this stuff." And they sent it, I sent all the pictures that I did that day off to the client and the producer. And the producer didn't say too much about it, too many of them, but on the last one, the age one, you two guys will get this. She gave me the greatest compliment that drove me crazy, which was, "I can't show them this. They're going to want it."
that was smart, though.
I mean,
Yes.
really. I mean,
Yeah,
this
I
is
know.
what you deal with. It's like, okay, do it less good.
I know.
That's exactly it. Hey, I did a thing called Pendragon Cycle a couple of years ago in Europe, and had 70 people working for me. It was a period project, and I remember at one point, because the budget was going way over, and I said, "All right, guys, I can reduce because I had 20 people in the main core actor trailers, 20 makeup and hair people. and another 50 out in tents. And I said, I can reduce the main core budget by 10% and the background people by 25%. But I need you to be, like I've asked you all the way along, give me an A, a B, and a C group. We put all of our time into A, a little less time into B, and C just gets a drive-by. And I can do it then, but I need participation. And
Yeah.
they came back and said, no, keep doing it the way you're doing it. I could have saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they don't want to be restricted a lot of times. And if they're willing to, like that producer said, I don't want the time, you have to take away the beautiful work that you're going to do to save the budget and to speed things up. And in a way, it was kind of nice. They said, no, keep doing it the way you're doing it, because then I could do it my way. I didn't have to
Right.
start cutting corners and apologizing for characters that didn't look the way they should. Because we had 300 background a day and 20 principal actors that were in prosthetics and wounds and tons of beards, and everybody had wigs. And you can imagine, it was quite the like a Lord of the Rings kind of thing. So it's nice when you're free to do our job, but most of the time, whether they're editing it out, they don't give you enough time. We're constantly struggling between being a business person, keep it fast, keep it simple,
Yeah.
keep it cheap, and an artist that's going to take time, cost money, and make it look fantastic. It
Yeah.
is called the film business, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that as you get further along in it, Jeff, I've talked to a lot of people who are in our same position. We've either retired, semi-retired, or moved on, and a lot of that information is not being passed on
Right.
in a way that people can pick up quickly. That's why I started a YouTube channel, to not only talk about how to do things, but also the procedures that are getting skipped over or lost or not highlighted, to help
Mhm.
people forward in either their career or just in their creative life. Yeah, you can take all this and do all these things, but sometimes take the best three things and use those to your advantage. Learn to work minimal, learn to work out of a small box, learn to work not too over technical.
Mhm.
If you have the ability to do that, that's great. But if you don't need to, that's why I loved practical makeup and practical makeup effects. And so much of what I did was that. And, and on film rather than digital. I was very fortunate to have been kind of in that old school filmmaking and learned from a lot of the old masters and a group of my level artists. We all work together, and now everything is accelerated so much and changed to the point where it's difficult to not only keep up but to pass on the old information, because a lot of people don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. They want the quick fix.
Sure.
Producers, they want the quick, cheap fix. And Jeff, you knew Jeff when I did Lost. You came in for the last season and part of the second to last season. I was trying to do film quality stuff on a
Mhm.
budget, and I got under the gun several times for working overtime. They didn't want to pay me for overtime. They didn't want me working overtime. I go, but you guys want to show this, and it can't be done. So I spent a lot of time on weekends working in my apartment, doing stuff to make it better for the day it worked. And because that's the type of artist I was. Where nowadays I think that needs to be passed on and shared with the young people. I didn't want my teaching to be only for someone who wanted to be a makeup artist. I wanted to let people know that there's a world of creative makers out there, and no matter who you are, what level you are, you can be creative. You can invent things. You can become a MacGyver in your little tiny workspace that you have, whether you're a cosplay person or for Halloween or for costume parties or your own student film, or you want to go to what we call maybe the big time and get into feature films. But there's a lot of new skills you need to learn, but
Mhm.
forget those old things.
I've
Yeah.
done classes for the local 706 union, and for a long time, I did them with Todd McIntosh, and just came up with maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think you can train someone to be a makeup artist. I
No.
really don't.
No, they have to.
Well, also, you guys know from doing so many podcasts and lectures and workshops that you get an audience, they're excited to hear about it. You think that you're hammering these pearls of wisdom into their head, and you're not. For the most part, they hear it, they think that's cool. I don't know if I could relate to doing it that way. Unless they're working with you side by side and you're saying, this is what I do in this situation. This is what you can do in this situation. Then it becomes real to them and then it sticks. But the lecturing is, I mean, I love doing it and I love to see how people react to it, but people really don't, it doesn't stick for the most part.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And I've been always a big advocate of being, when I was a kid, I did stuff, creatively and took all the shop classes I could in school to learn things. I learned how to work with tools. And, nowadays, some people don't know which end of the screwdriver to hold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I did a whole lecture once called What's in Your Toolbox, where I called attention to all those things you learned throughout your childhood, through your adolescence, through high school, through everything you do is a tool to be used in your toolbox, whether it's a way of dealing with people or you need to run outside and cut some wood and put some screws in it and make some kind of a puppet rig, or you know how to do things. And if you don't know how to do it, you at least know how to talk the talk to the special effects guys who can do it for you. But you got to have an idea of what you're do.
And see, they can't train someone to do what you did, Steve, when you worked over the weekend. You knew something needed to be done. You don't know exactly what it is, but the instinct cuts in that you do it. I've had those on occasion. I won't go into it, where I go, I'm not going to have something ready in the morning. I'm up at 2 a.m. I better do this.
Oh yeah. That sand is always running through the hourglass when you're a department head or you have a shop that has to supply something on a date and time. Failure is not an option in the film business.
Right.
I mean, we're not curing cancer, we're not feeding the hungry, but man, the pressure is on because we as makeup artists and makeup department head can shut a film down in a lot of ways. You've got to get the actors out there looking right with their heads screwed on straight without waiting, and that's just expected. You're expected to do everything perfectly, because if you don't, then you've failed and everybody knows it.
Yeah, I can't count the times that I'm putting on a piece right out of the mold that I've run in my hotel room and it's been baking all night while I'm sleeping. Right. And at 5 a.m, I open that mold and hope I got a great piece because this is the only one I have. And and it's perfect. Or it's got a little tiny bubble and I can hide it. Or I've done that on multiple films where I was a lab in my hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
Or in my condo where I'm mixing mud and crud in the bathtub because I got 100 people that got to be dirtied up, and I'm trying to figure out how to cut time.
Yep.
Thing into Hudson sprayers so we can spray everybody down. And those are the kind trouble solving is what we have to do. It's not all about like painting and color. It's the trouble solving. That's, as the department head or supervisor, you have to be that person. You got to be.
Yeah. And it's 24/7. It's, it's, and people will say, well, you're not getting paid for that, Jeff. You shouldn't do it. Well, then you can be the one responsible on set when it's not there. And they say, where is this? Yeah. You do it for the job. I mean, Ed, you've done, okay, here's $5,000 to create this. All right. That should be fair. And then suddenly you put in 3 times as much time, more materials, and thinking, I'm taking a bath on this. I have put in way more time, but you do it because that's what needs to be done, and hopefully you learn.
Yeah. It builds character. It builds someone who will take no for an answer. You don't give up and you push forward. And I think the movies that we've been able to do, because we were specifically the people involved with it, it wasn't 20 makeup people, 20 different designers. There's, makeup shows can get big. All these Marvel shows got, you see a list of all the different prosthetic people that worked on it in different labs. They're all different. Someone is in charge of this character, someone is in charge of that character. But the days of one person having to do, and I got into this business because I wanted to be a well-rounded makeup artist. And there have been many moments where I thought I was just going to have a lab, but that kept me away from the set, away from the final, that final check mark of the way the makeup looked. So I always liked being on the set and a little bit of lab. And I used to alternate between, being on a show and then a lab job, and then back and forth. And that's what kind of kept me
There are two words that I like that we're talking about for being a full-rounded makeup artist. One is you got to have chutzpah, and the other is perspicacity. That's a new one. I only heard that one recently. I like that.
Well, what does that mean?
That means chutzpah.
Yeah, it means balls. It means balls.
Cojones, or whatever you call it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have to be willing to. I remember my early career completely bluffing. Hey Jeff, actually a bald cap job when I was early in my career, and it was a rock video. It was a woman with a full head of hair down to her butt, and they needed the whole thing up because she was going to be in a bikini. I'm like, oh my God. So I went in and I interviewed, and I said, you know what? I am a bald cap specialist in the industry, and I guarantee you're going to love this work. And they, great, you're hired. And I went home and went, shit. Okay, I know how to do bald cap. So then I got together with Peter, the hairdresser I worked with. He showed me how to put the hair up and wrap it and keep it tight. I experimented doing hideous things to my poor wife for the next week or two. And by the time I went there, it turned out great. But the guts to then look at this room and say, you've got the right person. Hire me and you'll all be happy. I guarantee it.
We all you take certain jobs. You go, yeah, I'm game. I'll do it, and then you go away and go, now I got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
that happens a lot.
But yeah. Think about it. It was fake it till you make it, and then we all made it. And I miss those days of just jumping off the cliff and hoping there's an airbag down there.
Right.
That's why I found that when I was going through my studio, I had so much stuff that I had a gimmick and a gag and a tool for everything. So if there was something I needed help on, I go, wait a minute. Oh, I got that special bleeding knife over here. I can use that. And I've got this eyeball cover over there, because you accumulate all these little tools and gags and crutches to help you along the way. And it was an awakening of how much stuff that I had as I cleaned out my shop. And I thought, thank God my kids don't have to do this. They won't even know what this is. But it took me down memory lane. It really reminded me of the long road that I had been on, and the things that I had learned, and the things I had applied, and the things that I've taught to other people. And it is, as Dick Smith said, you got to pass it on. You got to pass it on. And I that's why I like teaching. I like showing. I like demonstrating. And pulling some green person in who did a beautiful makeup and say, now, what would happen if could you do this? And you throw different scenarios at people, then you kind of coach them on how they would deal with it. And as you know, Jeff, and and Ed, the rules change all the time. And you've got to be resilient and thick-skinned and able to just deal with it. I'm glad I was a Boy Scout when I was a kid, because be prepared, man. And
Yeah. And that confidence is something that is very infectious. The film business, as all industries, but the film business really looks for confidence. If you walk into a room and say, all right, I hear everybody has concerns here. I'm well aware of them. I will handle this.
Yeah.
When like nowadays, I go into a production meeting and I go, all right, when it comes to the blood, let's have me take care of it. I will make up the right blood that everybody approves on for the color, because everybody's very particular on how they want their blood nowadays. And then I will supply wardrobe, props, set dressing, effects, all the squibs, everything will be approved blood. And it's a big responsibility, because now you're making all of it, you're bottling it, you're making sure they have it, you're making sure they use it. And you don't have to volunteer that way, but it does avoid all the other problems that happen when you don't.
I took on the same thing as much as I could. I would confer with what effects was using, say, what, let's try this, or let's add this to what you're doing. And so we at least had in wardrobe, I always, made sure I did that too, and stuff. So it's like, yeah, there's things you got to step up and grab control of to make your job easier.
Right.
So yeah, what you're saying too, Jeff, about being solid. I mean, I was very fortunate at a young age. My history went way before the film industry. I was a live performer, and in live performance, there's no room, there's no do-overs, there's no take twos. And it was with the circus. And when you're in a circus, if you mess up, you can get killed.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, yeah.
Go left and you should go
Yeah.
right. A freaking elephant can step on you.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a cable
Yeah.
can snap and take you out. And I used to walk on 10-foot stilts. And if I tripped, I went down. And that happened twice. But because you're in the live performance aspect of a circus where you've got all these elements, for 4 years, I lived that life. And it really prepared me
Hmm.
for the unsteadiness of the film industry. So I was ready for anything. I was a live performance person.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no excuse. You really got to be prepared. And I think that's what really helped me gain the next job. It helped me understand people better.
Hmm.
It helped me look at a situation coming down the track and see, an error chain in that somewhere. So you knew how to fix it before it got.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, part of
Experience.
it is you're an entertainer. In a way, we're all entertainers.
Yeah.
Doing this, I think that reminds me of another Arnold thing. I remember, I don't know what I was doing. You must have been doing something else, Steve. But I was working on Arnold one day with Jeff, and a reporter was there and was asking him questions, and I almost lost my breath for a second when this reporter said something to the effect of, Arnold, maybe you heard it. He said, do you think you're a good actor? And I sort of went, what's the response going to be here? And he said, I'm an entertainer.
Yeah.
Very smart. Yep.
He's the
Arnold
man.
always knew where he was. He knew that his fans were the reason why he had success in beautiful homes and was so loved. And he never looked for an Academy Award. He just entertained. It's almost like wrestlers. Are they
Yeah.
real athletes? Well, yeah, they are. They're faking it, but they also get hurt. And their main job is to entertain.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Jeff, you actually just recently hung out with Arnold, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Few weeks ago, I was down in LA for a bit. And for years, I live in Oregon and Arnold lives in Southern California. And when he was governor, I had a place in LA and in Bend, Oregon at the time. So I would drive back and forth through Sacramento, and he was governor. So I would, call his assistant, hey, I'm coming through Sacramento tomorrow. Is Arnold in town? Does he want to get together? And there was a few times, yeah, come on over. So I'd go to the Capitol and hang out with him, at his office. And then we would go to the gym because Arnold would just go to a local gym in Sacramento. And I mean, Arnold's always been extremely public. And he hates using security. I mean, he goes around everywhere without security. Of course, as governor, you have Secret Service with you the whole time. So we would go to a public gym in Sacramento, and his two Secret Service guys would just go stand in the corners. They wouldn't even be near him. They're just watching him, And Arnold's working out, and people, oh, Governor, thank you. You're doing such a great job. Nice to meet you. Arnold loves that, and he's very good about it. So did that a few times and then go up to, because Arnold would fly from his home in Pacific Palisades. He'd fly to Sacramento on a Monday morning. Then he would stay there all week, and he would stay across the street from the Capitol at a Hyatt. He had a room permanently set up. He would stay there all week. And then on Friday night, he would fly back to LA, all on his private jet with his dollars, not charging the state, so he could spend the weekend with his family. He made it, both of them, those work. So it was fun to go up in his room and hang out with a bunch of people, and he's smoking a cigar, and we're all telling old stories, Arnold and the boys. But anyways, back to, I went down to LA, and his assistant, who he's had, Lynn, for 50 years, still works for him. And she said, yes, Arnold would love to see you. So I met him at a particular hotel that he likes to go to every day, almost every day. I rented a bike. Arnold showed up a few minutes later, and he had his truck or his car with his electric bike on the back. And he does this every day. He pulls up, and the guys take the bike off, and they get it all ready and stand there ready for him. And then he and myself, just the two of us, rode the 3 miles down to Gold's Gym, the most famous gym in the world, made that way by Arnold. It's funny because we pull right into the desk area, right? There's no bicycles there. And of course, Arnold pulls his bike in and pops it there. I pull my bike in and plop it there. Nobody's going to say anything. And then we go out to there's Gold's Gym down in Santa Monica or Venice. There's an outside workout deck with a lot of equipment that's getting all rusty and such now. That's where Arnold loves to work out. And so we worked out there for about 45 minutes. Lots of people coming up. Hey, Arnold, how's it going? What do you think of this now? What kind of a shape do you think I'm in now? You know, and Arnold spends time with everybody. He's very good with that. And then we rode our bikes back to the hotel. And then just the two of us sat there and had lunch for the next hour. It was so great, you know, bringing back, because we've spent thousands of hours together. And he's like, Jeff, I want to do this again soon. And so I'll be doing a project in LA in a few weeks, and hopefully I'll get together with him again.
Oh, incredible. Now, Steve and Ed, forgive me if I'm, because I probably should know this, but did either of you go on to T2 3D? I know Jeff went on to.
Jeff
I
was
did
doing that when I was on another job.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I had Lou Lazara and Tanya McComas helping me on that, who helped me on many, many films.
Yeah, I don't
both of
remember.
them.
I might have just fabricated some faces for that. I don't remember going on it or anything.
Yeah, I had a surgery and on my hip because I had broken my pelvis in a mountain biking accident. The night we actually did the T2 rock video with Guns N' Roses. And I went and I did a lot of night mountain bike riding with lights back in those days and crashed hard and broke my pelvis. So I was really hurting during T2 3D. So I did a little bit of the makeup and kind of let everybody else do it.
Gotcha. Did either of you get to see it when it was at Universal Studios?
Yeah, I saw it every chance I got to go up there. I saw it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I saw it once.
Yeah, it was cool. So, you know, it's just, you know, that type of film has been imitated so many times. It's cool to be on the one that really they copied and ran with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and of cyborg makeup is always, people love that kind of thing. I'm just glad that people still enjoy it. Keeps me busy. If I want to do a demonstration, I can just pull that out of my back pocket and do something fun. Like I said, I kind of retired out completely. I'm up in Southern Oregon and still getting settled. I've only been here about 3.5 weeks. So, you know, I wish I had that little bag of tricks like Ed had to show, because I really want to. I'm probably going to go find them out there somewhere.
Every day I look at some of this stuff and I go, I got to get rid of this someday. I don't know when that's going to be, but it's got to go. I can't just like kick off to the, you know, the great beyond and leave all this stuff here. My kids will have to come in and figure out what to do with it. I have I have tons of books. I've actually taken them to the motion picture home, a lot of them, and I still find like retirement communities where I drop books off. I have so many books. Anyway, that's beside the point. We're talking about T2.
Yeah. Although all these things are little pearls for people that want to get in the business. They're Terminator fans, they're Arnold fans, they're makeup artists. They're all, everything we're talking about can be related to in some way.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
That's why the only thing that's going to get edited is the beginning there with all the microphone issues and everything. Other than that, it's going to be a straight through episode. So,
well, I'm going to plug the Stan Winston School. I did Matt Winston asked me to do a Terminator makeup, and it was 2 hours. It was like 5 hours. And I did a full prep where I filmed making all the prosthetics for a redo of the Terminator makeup. And I talked in great detail about how it came about, kind of what we've talked about here. And then I did a makeup on a double the next day. and they filmed some cool shots. And I put my crew jacket, my black leather crew jacket on it that Arnold made sure we all had. And so that's on the Stan Winston School site right now. You can go.
How cool.
They sent me DVDs and Blu-rays of it so I can give them to my friends or family. So it's kind of been kind of cool. And I've gotten a lot of even more behind the scenes stuff that I'm going to put on my channel. And, you know, people are interested in this stuff. People want to know about Terminator. They want to know about Beetlejuice. They want to know about other things that I've done. Same, Jeff, I'm sure people have asked you about stuff, and Ed, you too. I'm just glad that I have a platform to present it to people. And, you know, moving forward, that's what's going to kind of keep one foot in the business and one foot out, so I can then be creative on my own terms and, you know, have control over it. Like, you know, I spoke to Rick Baker recently, and he goes, it sure is nice to be able to do stuff on your own. And, you know, you can paint it any way you want. No one's going to tell you how to do it. And you can do whatever you want. And I enjoy that. And that's kind of for the next chapter for me, being an artist. I would go crazy if I just packed up shop and then only went fishing.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's and maybe you guys can relate. Ed, are you retired now?
I'm technically active retired, but I don't know why I don't just retire. You know,
Well,
not much happening.
That's true, but I found that, okay, I'm going to retire and it's easy for me to keep busy. I have so many interests, so many passions. I'll just put that energy into something else.
Yeah.
Well, I realized that there's something addictive about the craziness of the business.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 1 day or a 6 month, it's a 1 day or a 6 month continuous train wreck. And I love that factor of it. I love the craziness. Just like Steve said with his live performance, you know, that he had experience with, it teaches you how to think on your feet. And what happens is you get kind of addicted to that. You get addicted to that crazy durka. The shit hit the fan. Now what are we going to do? You know?
Yeah, well, that's what I observed about you. I remember distinctly from T2 was you just love to deal with the shit. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not shit.
yeah.
It's not shit. It's not shit to you. You just
No, it's a challenge.
It revives you. You get
Very much
excited,
so.
You know,
Yeah.
the energy. You get your energy going. I like that.
at the end of the day, you look back and go, wow, I did all that stuff today. And last week I did all that stuff and I'm still alive and was still going. And, you know, it is for me, it's the show must go on attitude, no matter what.
Very much
Very
so.
positive.
And
Positive
that is hard.
attitude.
And that's hard to
Yeah.
turn,
Thank you.
really hard to turn off.
It is, because it becomes heroin. You know, I mean, it's a 12-step program. You know, of I always liken it to, you think like a fireman. Everyone else is running out of the building that's about to blow up and burn, and you're running in. You know, you're running towards the danger. And I try to teach that with department heading, that you have to have a little of that, or else it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
You know, that which does not kill you makes you stronger, and that's
You gotta
very
be
true.
proactive about all that stuff, and it's
Yeah.
important. So, and I pass that on to my kids. You know, your son,
Mhm.
Jeff, you know, Patrick is, you know, and was in camera department or PA, and you'll say he's been around a set, and
Right.
you a set of tools on how to behave and how to be, you know, a step ahead, and you pass that on to your kids. And sometimes you don't realize that they've absorbed it from you.
Yeah.
My daughter's a school teacher, but there are times when she's helped me at trade shows, you know, and she'll start talking about a product that I have out for people, and she start just throwing all this. Well, this is, you can blend this down with alcohol, and you can do this and do that. I go, where did you learn that stuff? And she goes, Dad, it's just, you know, from hearing you and seeing you and watching you, I picked up. And you know,
That
you're
feels good. Yeah.
artists, but they learn to think on their feet and
Mhm.
work with people. And that makes me proud that I've been able to at least pass on that type of, you know, positive behavior to my kids. You know,
Mhm.
my son the same way. So I mean, it's, you know, and you know, we're fortunate too that we're able to do this business and still, you know, kind of be around our family and kind of combine them with it and take them with us sometimes, or break loose and run home and see them. And balancing is tough too. You know, balancing.
Yeah, balancing, that's the tough part. You know, it's
Yeah.
the world to be a successful person in the film business, especially if you're running a shop or you're department heading big films, that's what you do. And your private life, your physical fitness, your family, your friends, they all suffer because I liken it to, okay, when you're a department head, you might as well be having an affair. People are like, what? Well, think about it. If you have a maid at home, your wife, whoever, when you come home, you have no time, no energy. Your passion is just completely tapped out. You know, you have nothing to give them. So that's where love starts to die. And it's a really tough balance. It was very easy to become a workaholic because society rewards us for that. The money, the fame, the resume, all of that. But then the friends and the family suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I,
if you're a success, like you two guys have been, if you're a success, it just draws in more work.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
it's-
you're in the stream. You know, when you're working, you're really in the stream, and it's like, oh, get him, look at him, he's doing this, you know, and you just never stop. It'll suck you dry if you're not careful.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing that I didn't see coming now when I retired, and I'm dabbling back into filming, and I'm now starting to produce too some of these things,
Excellent.
and that's kind of you guys know my personality. It goes into the business part of our film business quite a bit, and I find that it's so interesting now because there's a respect now that I've never seen before. I'll go on a set and every younger man than me seems to come up to me and say, Jeff, I was raised on the films you did. You know,
Yeah.
I got a million questions. And, you know, it's nice. I don't live for that, but it's nice suddenly to say at the monitor, I have a suggestion. Is anyone interested? And everybody at the monitor goes, yes. What do you think?
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do, it all has to do with my 45 years in the business. So it's kind of fun to tap into that now. And so that my opinion actually is heard.
Mhm.
You know, people, and Steve, you can relate to this probably. People would ask me after winning the Academy Award, how has it changed your career? They expect you to be making twice as much money and, you know, living in a beautiful home and driving Ferraris and such. I said, the only difference is now when I'm in a production meeting and I have an opinion, people want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I like production meetings for that purpose, especially if you're given the floor. And I've been very fortunate, at least my last few projects, and even my last project was a heavy makeup show where I had my walkie-talkie on to listen to the set and would sit in a 3-hour production meeting to break down everything the makeup department had to do that related to visual effects, that related to wardrobe, and being able to sit there and listen to what everyone had to say and reverse engineer everything that needed to be done for that show right there. I loved that part. And I'd say, hang on, guys, I hear a thing, you know, and I would text somebody and say, don't forget the blood gag, you know, and I had so many
Yeah, multitasking.
multitask. I loved that. But
I
the
know.
one that was
Yeah.
great is
Yeah.
when I did retire, I took my watch off and I haven't put my watch on since because I used to live
Wow.
time. And the only time I ever put my watch on is if I went for a walk. I needed to know how many heartbeats I had or how the distance was. But, you know, I just stopped wearing a watch. And I've been, you know, a victim of the time frame since I was 18 when I left home because the service clock too. It's live action. It really runs on the clock.
Right.
It's
And
nice not to have to set alarms too.
no alarm. I slept till like almost 9 o'clock the day, and I can stay up as late as I want. And moving here was tough because I had to pack up my whole house, get it ready to go in the market, and I was packing and getting rid of stuff and giving it away and 3D scanning stuff. And I always told myself, you know what? In my mind, I'm just prepping for my last show, and I'm going on a location and never coming back. And that's the driving force that got me here, settled in, and now you're settling in. And it had it not been for the industry to train me to be ready for something like that, it could have been very overwhelming. You know, I'm almost 70, and to pack everything up and start over is a whole new deal.
Because we're also doing this for our kids. We talked about this. I've gone through 3 giveaways, big giveaways. One you were part of, Steve, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I did another one 5 years ago, and I did another one a month or two ago.
And I
And, you know,
Out of the stuff you gave me,
uh-huh.
and I'm continuing to give it away.
It's great because I love giving it, giving it back, so to speak, to the,
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
but it also, we're doing this for our kids, because if we drop dead, it's like, oh man, thanks, Dad. You know,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. As soon as we sell our house, my kids are coming up here, so they'll all be up here
right. Good.
and in Vegas. So we'll be in one spot, and I don't have the weight of the industry around me. I don't feel that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
any-
sure. I've been up here for 35 years. That was the saving grace. That
Yeah.
when I wasn't on a film, I wasn't in the film business.
Yeah. And that wondering if I'm going to take a little job here or there, or teach a little class, or do a demonstration, that was always looming over me. And I don't like deadlines anymore. And I brought the things with me here that I can do to share and teach on my little videos, and maybe a demonstration at a school or something. And that's all I really wanted to do. Because it's not getting any better. I worked with all the best directors, best actors, best shows. Now it's watered down. They want cheaper, quicker, faster, and you don't even see half of what your end result is because it's all done post production.
Right. Yep.
So,
Well, it's
we are.
amazing. It's amazing what's being done. I read on Facebook. Louis Zakarian's doing Saturday Night Live. He's literally doing everything digitally, creating things, scanning things, making molds, doing all of this stuff. Like, he made some character. I don't know what it's called. I saw it online. It's like 24 hours, and there's a prosthetic of a full face and head and hands and the whole deal. 24 hours, and it looked good.
Well,
and it was probably yeah.
Yeah, and that's a new part of the business I want to learn. So I scanned everything, all my molds and face casts. I scanned everything, 3D scanned them, and they're on the computer now. So now I can learn to take them and make molds or reduce the size, do miniature.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you though, and I think we all agree on this. To be in the film business and to be makeup artists on the projects we've done in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s was the best time.
Yeah.
It just, because nowadays it's being fragmented. It's being, it's harder to get the same money now that you did 10 or 15 years ago. And it's not respected as much. It's in transition. Before you know it, it's going to be a lot more digital. I can't imagine anybody coming through the makeup business now having our careers ever in the future, So we were in the heyday.
Yeah,
I've done these union classes, and they asked. We had 30 people a couple of months ago in a class, and they're all asking me, "Are there going to be jobs?" I said, "I can't tell you, but here's the deal. Here's the positive side, right?" And I think you guys will agree with me. If you really love this and you got to do it, you'll do it.
Yeah,
that's right. Passion. Let that passion.
Yeah.
People used to come up to me and say all the time, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a special effects makeup artist." And I said, "And how old are you?" And they said, "Oh, I'm 35. I go, "Then how come you didn't?"
Yeah, exactly.
All I can say is, well,
right.
I was doing it when I was, I started when I was like 19. I started laying the groundwork. How come?
Yeah.
It's not handed to you. It's not a gift. You're given opportunities, and it's about opportunities and doing the homework and being all that alone time it takes to learn your craft, all the reading, all the research. And nowadays it's so much easier to learn stuff. Why aren't you doing that? And there's a huge Halloween market out there. There's cosplay. There's those types of things, which to me, I still applaud that those creative venues are out there. I always say, I was coming up through a renaissance. It was a renaissance of makeup when we got going. And I was so happy to have gone through that and been a part of it, and, worked with people, next shoulder to shoulder with people like you guys, or with Rick, or with V. Neal, or with Greg Canham, or Dick Smith, and, all those different, or Tom Berman. I knew John Chambers. I knew William Tuttle. I knew all those names of history. I was a link. I remember being in the room with them, hearing them talk and watching their story. And now we're that last line of people. And, Rick retired a few years ago, and, up until I left, I'd see him every once in a while, and he's still very enthusiastic about what he does. But it's just, yeah, we are of the last of a certain generation that was exposed to the all on film, no digital, all practical, home latex.
Bare knuckles makeup.
Yes.
Yep. And also some of the crazy, directors and personalities in our business between Me Too and woke and, social media, they can't act that way anymore,
No.
And I've always said that directors, if they weren't directors, they'd be in prison or dead or in an insane asylum, because there are these artistic, crazy people that have found a business that can make money for other people. So therefore it gives them power. And that's fun to work with, those crazy Billy Friedkins and these different directors that were screamers and yellers and wild people. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I kind of miss it,
Yeah.
Well, just little things, those are tools in our toolbox to remember.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, Steve, you said something that I kind of want to wind down with here, and then we'll wrap it up. But because it was literally over 2 hours, so it's crazy. But I kind of figured this would be a massive episode. You mentioned the Stan Winston School, and so having 3 people who have worked with somebody that is literally like it's a legendary name, Stan Winston. Can each of you share a favorite memory that you have with Stan?
Dan, let me go first. I met Stan when he was not even in a studio. I was in the Tom Berman studio interviewing with Tom, and I came in one other time to show some things, a mask or something I made. And Stan was there using a corner of the studio to paint. He was using a spray booth to paint a prosthetic to go on somebody. And it was before Stan even had a studio. And the first time I'd met Stan and Sonny at the same time. So, and to know Stan through all of those years, to the point where he got his own studio and did that show Manimal, and did the first Terminator film where Sonny Berman made all the endoskeleton stuff, to have gone into the shop and seen how Stan has grown and how his studio got massive. And by the time we did T2, to go into that new studio where he had a gym in the studio, and to see how that grew and exploded into a huge organization, it was great to be a fly on the wall and see that change go all the way through T3, and then Jurassic Park and all that stuff. And it's too bad that Stan's not around anymore, because I know he would have a lot more to contribute. And fortunately, he set up his business so his guys could carry on the dream, and then his son Matt could then carry on, the educational side of it. And he'd been after me for a long time to do some type of video. And I just didn't want to be the guy who did, some cuts and stuff on. You can see that anywhere. So I was fortunate to be able to do a whole highlight the Terminator makeup, which Jeff, if it hadn't been for that phone call, I wouldn't have been able to do. And because I was so locked into dealing with the prosthetics as they came from the studio, putting the puzzle together so we could make our day shorter getting the makeup onto him, it really helped me out. And it was an honor to contribute to the school, to pass it on to the next group. And I think that you did multiple shows with Stan, Jeff, and I was fortunate enough to work on many shows, Galaxy Quest, and other little projects. So it was a great experience for me to know him, to work with him, and and just getting reacquainted with Matt and the family has been really a nice thing to do in the past couple of years.
Ed?
Your turn, Jeff. Ed.
Jeff has more to say. I met Stan, of course, on T2. I remember sitting down to dinner or something at one point, and I got to speak to him a little bit. I didn't talk to him that much or that often, but he seemed like a gentleman and a funny guy too.
Yeah,
that's my best memory.
Yeah.
And Jeff.
And well, let's see. For one, Stan is unique, or was unique, because he was an outstanding artist, but he was also an outstanding business person. And those two things don't always go together. I mean, the other two gentlemen on this have run their own businesses, they've run their own shops, they've had crew working for them. You have to get into business if you decide to be a department head or a shop owner. But most makeup artists are not business thinking. Stan always was. He was a great promoter of his. I used to hear stories from Tom Berman, because Tom and Stan were in a similar circle and worked together for years. And Tom would just be amazed at how Stan could go into a production. And let's say they're selling the idea that they're going to build a Frankenstein. And Stan would get everybody lathered up about how important their creature is in this movie, how important getting it right is. And of course, the idea is that if you hire us, we're going to do that. And of course, he would get the jobs many times because of that confidence and because of that passion. So he was a great salesperson. And he was very good friends with Arnold. Arnold loved Stan because Stan was a funny, quick, smart guy. And they joked around and laughed all the time. When I first met Stan, it was after I had met Gale Ann Hurd and James Cameron. And they said, well, Stan has it in his deal that whoever's going to department head Terminator 1 for makeup, he gets to approve also. So, all right, I got the thumbs up on these two, and I'll go over and meet Stan. I didn't know Stan. He knew of me because of my dad. My dad and him were friends and in a similar circle. My dad was retired at that time. I met Stan, and he said, the story I've told many times, he said, we're doing a test next week at my studio on Arnold. We'd like you to come in. Okay, great. Well, that was the first time I met Arnold. And of course, I was a huge Arnold fan. I was into bodybuilding at the time, very excited. I meet Arnold. Arnold sits down. All the makeup was laid out. This was at Stan's studio. There was eyebrow covers, little foam latex eyebrow covers, and we were going to put those on, or his people were going to put this on, I thought. Arnold sits down, and nobody's doing anything. Okay. Okay. I grabbed it, and I started putting them on. I did them both. They turned out really well. And I thought, oh, I guess that was the way it's supposed to go. Nobody else was doing this. We didn't have any of these conversations. Well, I'm sure Stan set that up. He wanted to see how I would handle it. It was a test for me.
Yeah.
And not only how I would handle it, but would it turn out okay? And he took me into his office and he said, that turned out really well, Jeff. I wasn't sure if you were going to be part of the makeup application team or just running the department. I'd like you to head the makeup application team. So I did all the prosthetics on Arnold for Terminator 1 with occasional help with Stan's people that would come in if I needed it. And I always appreciated that because it was a well thought out thing that Stan did to test me. Great respect for Stan. I will always thank him for the career I've had.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's a
Beautiful.
fine tribute.
Look, it's I know at the top of the episode we talked a little about the Academy Awards and how it was only given to Stan and Jeff, but having had all of you guys here, Ed, Steve, I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's quite literally an all-encompassing award. And I know it really truly is kind of meant to be that way, right? That win was for the whole team. And it's just, I mean, all of your work on the film is absolutely unforgettable. So,
And let's not forget about Peter Tothball, who was there for the hair on all those movies. You know, Peter is. I had the fortunate opportunity to be the presenter at Peter's Lifetime Achievement Award last year from the makeup union, and it was nice to go full circle with Peter, and to know that he was a huge contributor to what we have done. And fortunately, I continued working with Peter for years beyond that, and so did you, Jeff. He probably crossed paths with you too, Ed. It's just, I couldn't think of the Terminator makeups without thinking of Peter as well.
and I actually have tried to get him on this podcast, but I think he doesn't feel too comfortable with how he talks. That's my understanding, Jeff.
Yes, I've had conversations with him. Peter and I have done between 30 and 35 films together. as department heads, over 30 years. And Peter's retired now, but we still stay in touch. Very talented gentleman from Hungary, from Budapest, Hungary. And he still has a fairly thick accent. And although he did such a wonderful job, Steve, his speech there, I was amazed. I didn't know if Peter had that in him.
Yeah.
And he knocked it out of the park. So when Peter needs to do something like that, he does it. He does it well.
Yeah, he steps up. It was wonderful to spend that. And as I got older in my career, so many people, like you say, Ed, they either die off or they move away, and that was starting to happen. Peter moved away, and then Jeff was always out of town. I'd see him when I would come in, and Ed, I never got to see you much, and making the choice to be one of those people who depart was a hard choice to make. However, things like this Zoom, the ability to do stuff like that, is kind of a nice perk, knowing that we can never completely lose contact with our friends and our colleagues, that we can do the same thing we're doing here and continue that for as long as we care to do it.
I'm glad this was documented today. I hope there's more. There's so many more stories.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah.
Valuable for people to hear. I hope this is preserved somehow.
Yeah, just let us know when it drops. I want to see what it turns out to be.
And Ed, you want some photos, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, I'll get those to you in the next few days. And Steve, you might have some too.
Yeah, I'll look and see what I've got.
Okay.
I might have some good pictures of Linda in the age makeup too.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have the same pictures I have.
I have a ton of them, yeah, because we were both taking pictures and giving them to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably got the best choice, and yours are probably more accessible than mine.
Mine are in my phone.
Yeah.
Coincidentally enough, this is the date that Governor Newsom was kicked out of office and Arnold became governor. This is the anniversary of it.
Oh, you mean Gray Davis? Gray Davis. Yeah.
Gray Davis.
Yeah.
Losing my brains.
Yeah, as much as many people would like to see that happen with the current governor. But.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Must have been a Freudian slip, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting little point there.
Yes, we love history.
The governor.
The governor. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you one final question, and I think Jeff, because you've been on many of these things, and the question is, put aside your association to T2, since that's what we're talking about here. All-time favorite James Cameron film, Jeff. I think your answer is T1, right?
It is. It's a close call to T2, but because T2 had a formula to match, it was a little bit of a blueprint already. T1 was out of nowhere. Right. James Cameron just created that, so you got to give him credit for that.
So T1 for Jeff. Ed, what's your all-time favorite Cameron film?
Aliens. It definitely scared the shit out of me when I saw it. See, one of the few movies that's ever scared me. The suspense is incredible in that movie, and the breakneck pace, the whole thing is brilliant. Of course, the effects are out of this world.
It still holds up.
Yeah, I think it's great.
All right. It's hard for me to say, because T2 is great, but what led to T2 and the technology, I think, was The Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
Worked with actors who worked on The Abyss, and said how difficult it was working underwater and the working conditions of that. Even jump forward to like Titanic, that was all done in a tank, but The Abyss and all the cool magical technology that they did, with Boss Films working with them. Cameron, every time he did something, he raised the bar, even with the Avatar films. Some people don't like the Avatar films because they think it's animated and it's just a whole new technology. So it's hard to pin down one movie, but one that I really pick out when I first saw The Abyss and the water tentacle technology that he brought in. To me, it overlaps between those two and T2 because that's when he really fully brought that technology, full force. And, he's done great stuff since then.
Yep.
But, I love the storyline in Titanic, the romantic storyline. And so, I get into as much of the storytelling as I can of the makeup or the effects. If it's not a good story,
Mhm.
and he also was able to throw the humor in, even on True Lies. The humor aspect with Jamie Lee Curtis and the whole idea of True Lies being what it was funny, and to cross over and do a film with humor in it is what's important. And my background is in humor, so if something makes me smile and leave the room kind of chuckling, I enjoy that too. So that was a
Well,
way to not answer a specific question.
Jim has mentioned in many of his interviews that he wasn't able to make a particular movie before because the technology didn't exist. So the technology had to catch up, or he had to create it to then be able to do that movie. But he had these ideas in his head for decades beforehand. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Well, any final closing words, and then we'll wrap this up. So, any final words?
All I can think of is, it's not over when you think you're finished. There's always something creative to do. And as long as we find, Jeff, you're producing stuff, Ed, you're still doing stuff. As long as we're doing something creative, we have succeeded because we're continuing to be a creative person. And that's what's important. And always pass it on. Pass it on.
Yep.
we, we're not threatening anybody. We don't want anything from anybody. So no matter how big shot you are in this business, we're not in competition with anybody, and that's a great place to be for me personally. I'm not competing with anyone except myself, and that's kind of all I've ever done anyway. And I know if I fall short, if I'm cutting corners, and you also have to remember, you do the best you can with the time allowed in the situation that you're in. And it may not be what you expected, but you always have to consider those three factors.
That's where television comes in. We get
Yep.
spoiled with film because with film, you might learn about a gag 3-4 months in advance. You can design it, you can have meetings, you can test it, you can sculpt it, you can fail with it and start from scratch again. Okay. With TV, you read it a week earlier, and then you got to figure out how you're going to create prosthetics and various gags and wounds and such while you're working. Hopefully, have a day beforehand to test it in some way, and then knock it out of the park the next day.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that in a meeting one time on Hawaii Five-0. It was a big age makeup, and I said, folks, in a perfect world, we would get life casts. We would have weeks in advance to do this. We would sculpt it. We would approve the sculpts. We would run the pieces. We would test it on the actors a few weeks in advance, so then we could change it again. And we might do 2 or 3 tests, and then we nail it. In this one, we're going to use stock pieces, our best guess. We're going to test, hopefully, the actor, maybe a double the day before. And then on the day we shoot it, we're going to knock it out of the park. And of course, that's my sales job, and it ended up being that way. But it's terrifying to say that because you really are relying on your experience and a little luck and a lot of doing things right the first time to have the reputation that, yes, you knock it out of the park. But Steve, you did that for years with your TV shows.
Yeah.
And that's addictive in itself.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I walked around the set and I'm experimenting myself. I got a nosebleed gag and I've got a
Yeah.
nose, and I'm experimenting, or I'm painting something on my hand.
Uh-huh.
I go home with like colors on my hand or something on my face where I tried something. I just, that's kind of the way I roll.
For years, I kept the top of my thigh shaved because I would sit down and I would be drawing or gluing or stitching or painting it and then wanting to leave it. Okay, I'm going to test tattoo colors and sealers and all of this. So you walk around with all this crap glued and on you all day long.
Yeah.
And I did that for years because you don't want to take it to the next step, which is testing it on somebody. Heaven forbid you test it on your $20 million actor and don't get it right the first time, So, yeah, failure is, there's no guarantee we won't fail, but you want to do everything you can ahead of time so you don't.
Yeah.
So if there's a Jeff Don impersonator, we're going to check out that thigh, right?
Yeah,
That's it.
shaved thigh
Yeah.
with a bunch of weird things glued to it, you know?
Yeah, that's the real Jeff Don.
But you know, it's kind of fun. I mean, you guys can relate to this. You're sitting there
Sure.
stitching up a prosthetic on your leg, going, "This is so cool. It looks great even to my eye. This
Yeah.
is the people are going to love this," you know?
Yeah. And then you got to teach an actor how to do it who's never done it before.
Yeah, well, I've done that several times, and I talk them into, "Hey, let's do a shot, let's say with Arnold is getting stitched up on camera." "Well, how are we can do that, Jeff?" "Well, you know, we build a plate underneath and we use practical sutures and needles, and then we'll bring a doctor in that knows how to stitch." Great idea. This particular scenario happened twice to me because I sold that whole idea. I bring a doctor in, we agree which stitch, because there's a lot of different stitches and some look more like what people think they should look like. Great,
Right.
do that. And then suddenly on the day, they freeze up. They meet
Right.
Arnold and they're like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And then I have to go to the director and go, "Let me do it."
Yeah.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
is
So then I
pretend-
become the doctor, you know, which I don't
Yeah.
want to do. I'm a busy guy. I don't want to have to sit there on camera. I don't have a need to be in front of camera. But
Yeah.
Arnold's comfortable with me. Once on
Yeah.
real quick one. Once on the one with the devil that Arnold did.
End of Days.
End of Days. Thank you. This happened, and it was a big stitch up job on his forehead, and there was a plate underneath it. Ed, you might have made this for me. And you know, you have your forceps clipped onto the curved suture needle that has like the blue thread on it. And I'm sitting there, and the camera is like right here. Okay, it's right here behind my head, going past me onto Arnold's close-up head. So you're really seeing it. I've got the gloves on, and all of a sudden I dive the needle in, and Arnold goes, and he's supposed to be passed out. He goes, "Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's cool acting." "Ah,
Oh.
Jeff, you idiot, you're stabbing me." I had taken the needle and I'd missed the plate, and now
Yeah.
I'm
Oh my
shoving
God.
it into his forehead.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Arnold.
Hey, it's only the star of the movie.
Yeah, right. "Jeff, you idiot, you're stabbing me."
No, you do a good impression.
Yeah,
Put that
we
needle
ended up getting
down.
the shot, and he's not scarred, luckily.
Yeah.
Remember the time, Jeff, when we were listening to Charlie Tuna on the radio at like 5 a.m?
I remember this well.
We're listening to him, and he called for people to make their favorite sound. And we
Or
got
the famous impersonator.
through to Charlie Tuna on the radio live,
Yeah.
and said that, you know, we're in the makeup trailer for Terminator, and the makeup artist does a really good impersonation of Arnold. And we handed the phone to Arnold, and he went off
Well,
on
at
Charlie Tuna
first
about-
it was me, and they were like, "Hey, that's pretty good, buddy." And
Yeah.
then Arnold, like, "Yeah, let me do it," you know. And then Arnold's talking to them.
That was funny, and that was
That's right.
live. We're listening to it on the radio. So those
Yeah,
are fun,
yeah.
fun little moments that come along with.
Oh, so many. I mean, we could do this kind of a platform for hours, for days, you know.
On all the different movies.
Right.
Well, that's the one other memory I have of Arnold was, you know, when you brought me on, you know, he was just a friendly guy. He was genuinely supportive. I found him intimidating, frankly, you know, big movie star, but he was very, very friendly, genuinely friendly to everybody.
That's the way he is. Arnold treats grips and electricians and extras and craft service people the same as he does actors and directors and producers.
Yeah.
You know, he's old school. Arnold is still a farm boy from Graz, Austria, that just
Right.
happens to make $100 million a year, you know?
Yeah, that's all.
He once told me, he said, "You can tell people's true personality by the way they treat people when they no longer need them." When you get the power and the money to buy sex and friends and laughter and entourages, it can we start to see the true personality that you are. And you know, some actors become famous and real jerks, and other ones become famous and they're still attached to their humble beginnings.
I came in on True Lies. I did a live cast on him, and I asked you if it would be okay to bring my son along to meet him.
Yes.
And of course, I don't know. I guess the word was relayed back to me. It was okay, and he was. I have a picture of them somewhere. He's got Spencer in his lap. He's that small.
Oh,
And
great.
Jamie Lee Curtis took the picture.
How cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a long time ago. My
Yeah.
son is now a major in the Army, so that's how long ago
Wow.
that is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel the same as I always have until I look in the mirror. And go, who the
Right,
hell is
yeah.
that? You
Yeah,
know,
that's not right.
who let that old man in my house?
It's like
You're
that
lucky.
scene in
Just don't take a
it's like
picture.
that scene. It's like that scene in Targets with Boris Karloff, where Peter Bogdanovich directed it, and he's in it. And Karloff is being interviewed, and he turns around and sees himself in the mirror, and it's like he's horrified. Yeah, it shocked him.
Well, that's kind of the way Linda Hamilton was. You know, when you do age makeup, especially more so on women, because women in the film business, a lot of it's based on their beauty and sex appeal and youth. That's marketable. So when you take someone like Linda, who had been the star of Beauty and the Beast as the beauty, a
Yeah.
young, attractive woman, and you make her into a 75-year-old, that's hard. Because
Yeah,
now she's pretending. Now there's a reality of something coming in her future. It's funny because Linda kind of looks like that now, you know.
yeah.
Um,
I've
but
seen her. Yeah,
she didn't like it. She didn't like it at all. There was a lot of reasons, you know, us pulling the hair out of her face didn't help. But
no,
she just wasn't that happy with it. But on the day when we did it, it was better.
Yeah.
She was into it, you know, the discipline. Linda, I don't want it to sound like Linda's a difficult person. She was a sweetheart for the most part. She was
Yeah.
method at times with us, but I'm perfectly fine with that and respect that. For the most part, Linda treated everybody wonderfully.
Yeah, I think Linda was fun. Because I did her, you know, carry you put her in my chair the whole show. You
Mhm.
know, we got fairly close, and it was nice to be able to do the straight version of makeups. You know, the pretty distressed look, but also do the
Sure.
toned up. And you know, Linda, you know, there's a lot of blood continuity on her for certain specific scenes that happened. So, but you know, she was really fun to work with, and it was, you know, I just think that as we go down the path and I've run into Robert Patrick several times along the years and done some stuff with him. So it's just kind of nice to see where people are now. I'm glad Linda's back working and doing stuff. She's on that Alien show, which is fun to watch. And it's just nice to see people out and doing stuff. And Arnold's doing Foo which is fun to watch. And you know, it's just nice to sit back and enjoy what's coming down the road now.
Yeah, it's something that hopefully you guys will relate to. When I was with Arnold and we were at the gym a few weeks ago, and he's in a machine working out, and I said, Arnold, I don't know about you, but I still love the business. I'll sit on a set and look around and go, I just love it here for some reason. And he said, me too. He said, I love working in the film business still. And it was so good to hear, because that would be to hate to work in the film business and have to do it would be torture, because it's a tough business. There's, you know, for every great thing, there's a half dozen like really difficult, life altering things that most people would avoid if they had a choice. But it is addictive. It is an adrenaline rush. It is potential disaster. Like I said, we're not curing cancer. We're not feeding the hungry, but we are entertaining people, and that is fun.
yeah.
Also, this is
It's a playground, you know.
it's
It
a
really is.
playground, and
You walk onto a set and it's like, look at that, it's a phony wall over there. I love it.
yeah, but it ruins you for your life. I go hiking all the time, and I go, that looks like a fiberglass wall. No,
There you
that's
go.
a real wall of granite. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
I
the hell
used
was
to
I
tell
gonna do?
people it took me years to get into the business, and it's taken me years to get out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
You know, it's just, but my heart still, and I still appreciate, you know, when I see at least my work or stuff I've worked on, I go, well, I've never seen this episode, because I never see, sometimes you never see your work. And you know, I'm watching a lot of Lost episodes recently.
Yeah.
I can
It's
see
a
it.
great one to rewatch. And yeah, I'll watch things that I did decades ago and go, damn it, I did that? Could I
Yeah.
do that now? You know,
Right.
I just pulled that out of my butt
There you
Yeah.
go.
25 years ago and it worked. You know?
Well, guys, it's great.
Gentlemen. Yeah, sorry. This was seriously just a great opportunity to really be a fly on the wall. I really wanted to let you kind of take the reins, and I just wanted to pop in from time to time. But seriously, this will be preserved. Don't worry, Ed. This is
Great.
gonna, as long as the internet is around, this will be around. So
Great. And yeah, and Eddie, Eddie and myself have done many of these now over the years.
Yeah.
And and I didn't know what we were going to talk about. I had no idea if this is. I don't like to know ahead of time. I want to know my audience. Are they makeup? Or are they wannabe? Or are they some other industry that I can somehow make them relate to some of my stories to? I know what the audience is here, but I didn't know what the subject was. And what was interesting is I thought, what's Eddie going to ask? Well, you didn't have to ask anything. There's probably 100 questions that you could have or you were lined up to ask, but we just ran with it.
hands off. That's how I
Yeah,
like to do it.
yeah.
So, we'll wrap it up here, but stay in the studio. We'll do a formal goodbye. So
And-
everybody, thank you for watching, listening. And seriously, if you haven't already, you have to give it a rewatch. Go watch Terminator 2.
Yes.